out here for Rector Street Bridge. Excuse me?
Sorry.
Everyone's attention.
Is that
microphone's
running?
I will let you know it will
Yeah.
catch up what everyone says, even private conversations. So that gives you a little heads up on that too. Some I don't think realize that happens to them. We will start first with committee members. No one is here to give a speech. No one is here to cite their opinion that we've already heard, such as, it's near my house and it upsets me it's moving. We know that. We appreciate that. We've heard it many times. You don't need to reiterate that. Any comments made must address one of the whereases. The purpose of today is to work on completing the resolution. Period. End of story. If you don't address that, we'll ask you to please leave and come back. We'll take those discussions offline, listen to them, but that's not the purpose of this meeting. We have a lot to get done. So November's over.
Can you hand out
Let's
resos?
start anew. Excuse me?
Can you hand out resos?
Yes,
please?
Diana will do that so that you can focus anything you say. Oh, thank you. Yeah, make sure all the committee members get them first, which shouldn't be hard, only 7.
As the committee has to get it first, and then extras go around to the public, so I'm happy to share. This one is
All right.
do you mind doing the bike path one as well at the same time so we can go?
Oh, sure. We in terms of handout?
Yeah. We'll start with that.
I know we have too many people here. You're only 4 reps.
I'm just going to say, are they exactly the same? The 2 piles came out?
Yes, they're both the same.
Okay.
Yeah, they just came from different directions.
How about I do that? Split and see.
Yeah. Oh,
Sure, I'll check.
No, that's number 2.
Number 2.
One's the city hall, the bike park, the bicycle.
Right, so turn your attention to the
Connection
Rector
project on
Street
Broadway.
Bridge. And are there any comments, first of all, from the committee members?
I need to, before comments, I need to make a point of information in the parliamentary, address something that what you said in the opening. Generally, it's better to have a resolution grow organically and not continuously have these draft resolutions thrust in front of us. Because we're working our way backwards as opposed to the committee debating and coming up with something on their own. And what you said was you only want someone to address the whereas that are in here. That's not why we're here. This isn't even voted on yet. It's a draft that someone came up with. I could have brought my own draft in. She could have brought his own draft. We could have had 6 drafts here if we wanted to. So if someone from the committee or the public wants to make a comment or an opinion or that is not even addressed in the whereas, they have the right to do that. That's why they're here. And like I said, in the bigger picture, we have to stop the way to, and now and then you need a draft resolution to come before us, but as a common practice, it shouldn't be like that. And like I said, it has to be organically from the committee and input from the public.
The input's from November, sorry.
I understand, but the public should be able to comment on anything they want, even if it's not in this, even if it's not a whereas here. I just want to make that clear. Whether we like it or not.
Well, Mark, I want to tell you one thing. If we had had a quorum in November, this would have been done then.
That was November. This is January.
No, I'm
These people
pointing
are
out
here for that.
they're the same people who were here in November.
I understand.
No, we were here in November.
Maybe they all weren't.
Well, let's
There was
stick.
no notice.
Okay, let's
No notice was given to
stick.
the
Okay,
community.
well, address some of the facts, and these are a summary of facts that were brought up and limitations by the experts and people from different city bureaus. You can argue and say you don't like them, that doesn't mean they aren't true. So if you want to add something to it, by all means, You can do that, but that doesn't change the reality of
Any
the.
challenge can be overcome if there's a thought
Yeah.
process involved with it.
Then what-
So there's nothing in here that would not allow
Hold on.
for this bridge.
That's not so true. But let's do
Not-
the committee.
No, I didn't start for that. I just wanted to clear up
But that
parliamentary what we have to do, so that's it.
So I'm answering Mark's parliamentary. Do you have concerns with the way the resos are done? We bring it up in executive. This is not a good place to
Yeah,
negotiate.
that was as a side note.
Side note aside,
Yeah,
I'm telling you, bring it back to executive so we
Yeah,
can discuss
yeah,
it there.
yeah.
Because we are looking at the role of technology moving forward. This is part and aspect of it.
Mhm.
It's a new change. It's specifically done and had a
Yeah.
conversation about trying to do this because the topics are very big.
Yeah, no, I
And we're trying to
understand.
balance what the community and the community board
Yeah.
and the office need. So totally hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
but bring that up in executive.
I'm gonna-
This is not the
I
place
did
for
it. No,
that.
but the main point was that the chair had said that the
I
people
heard
in the
what the chair
public can
said.
only talk about what's incorporated in these whereases, and that's not
And,
right.
well, understand, Mark.
That's a different situation.
Mark, that's a different conversation.
But they
But
need
this
to
is
know that they
this-
can
this
say what
is
they
not-
want.
In support of the conversation with the community, this is not the first conversation with the community.
I understand.
Maybe it's not the last, I don't know that yet, but there have been many
I know.
conversations in different committees on this topic,
Mm.
okay? And there are conversations that have been held both at this meeting,
Mhm.
at the Battery Park City Committee,
Right, I know.
at the full board.
Right.
So to say that it's not been discussed before.
Oh, I didn't say that. Just that if someone wants to comment on something that's not in this content within this resolution, they should be able to do that.
I agree with that,
Yeah.
that part, yes.
That's all, that's my main point. If I didn't articulate it properly, I apologize. Thank you.
There are
Co-chair.
people outside that can't hear. It would be nice if we can get them in here as well and made it all the way over. And we should be invited
The
in.
bike resolution that are not included that I've had one of
If
the
I
last.
may ask, maybe some people who are standing can sit at the table?
Of course.
There's room at the table.
Is that okay? I mean,
Well, if there's room at the table, it's always been the way it is.
Of course.
yeah, three. And there's two more here. Is that what's in there?
There's a chair here.
There's one left.
Two
left.
Two left.
Someone else to sit.
Well, if they don't want to come in, they don't come in. I mean, and then if they want to be, it's not on anybody. If they, you know, you can't, you know. Oh, great.
I need another paper. Can I ask people to sign in?
Well, that's not what we're here for. It's not about. Not necessarily, but thank you.
Okay, Mark, you said you had multiple items?
Oh, I'll second call on that. That was what I wanted to mention. They just didn't have a chance to review.
Anyone else on the committee
Come back to me, please. Yeah.
About what?
Yeah.
Well,
that
let's,
want to have any comments or questions about it? Just want to move forward so we can get on to this resolution.
Yeah.
Which resolution we on now?
we're doing,
Rector Street.
Okay.
sorry, I'm doing my notes out.
Wait, anyone else from the committee? Is that a no?
I do have a quick, I'm curious if you could elaborate on the DOT, I guess there's some subsurface utilities, I'm just not super familiar with that. The conversations that you guys had with DOT about subsurface utilities.
Oh, the New York State DOT.
Yeah, oh, New York State DOT, yeah.
It's New York State DOT.
Yep.
I know the electricals are
Okay.
under there, and hate to put somebody on the spot who may know more. There were some questions, and that Matt, who was an engineer, did not specifically work at that site, did not know all the details, other than it was the electricals and other required. Fellow from DOT was not an engineer, but is from the owners of this, and said they need to do routine maintenance. They're going to go in there. They have an agreement. If the lighting and other problems occur and they can't get to them because the bridge is in the way, they will do an emergency takedown. It could occur at any time. And so they were warning people in November, that's a reality. That's what they mean.
I can actually also answer that question. If you look at the 2003 DOT proposal for the renovation of all of West Street, where the conversation had come to the community board and those presentations are online, it showed the utility grid that was underneath West Street from Vesey to just south of Liberty, and it shows the water lines, the electrical lines, the Con Ed lines that run the length. The other thing is, in the presentation by the Battery Park City Authority about the resiliency measures looking for North Battery Park City. What has come before the community board is we had asked if maybe they could build resiliency down the median, right, for 9A, if you remember, and they specifically said, the city was at that meeting and specifically said they could not because the major plumbing and waterways for all of Lower Manhattan came straight down West Street. So there was limited ability to be able to do any subsurface work that crossed 9A. I can't imagine crossing 9A at Chambers Street is any different than crossing 9A south of the towers. But so if you look at either one of those things, all of the maps and structures and information are on both of those.
Got it. Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, so I'd like to add a whereas that states that, I'll come up with better verbiage, but this is the thrust of it, is that, the crux of it, is that even though DOT is expressing that the bridge must come down, it should not discount the residents' concerns as to why there needs to continue to be a bridge there, and that DOT needs to address that fact once the bridge is down, on how they're going to address accessibility and things like that.
So,
Accessibility to what?
what kind of accessibility?
Well, all their issues that they've spoken about the location, the crossing the street, things like that,
So I'd
that we
like,
talked about in other resolutions.
can we have them?
Something like that.
Can we, building on what Mark's saying,
Yeah.
can we have them, we've had residents come in November who were from the east side of West Street, saying that their concerns was walking past Rector, which has no traffic control there, and west. And can we put a whereas that says for city and state DOT to do a study of the Rector and West Street intersection to see if they can put traffic control there, and to evaluate existing traffic control measures on Albany for potential improvement.
Basically, once the bridge comes down, they need to address all these concerns that have been spoken about. And we have the list,
I
so
second that friendly
so
amendment.
we have. You don't have to second it. It's not voted on
Maybe.
yet. But thank you.
Regarding that.
After it's open.
Thank you. I'm finished. Thank you.
Justine?
Thank you. So, it's kind of building on what Mark said and what Tammy said, but going farther. It's gonna cost $4 million to take down that bridge. I understand every safety concern that's raised in terms of fire safety and everything else as far as Metropolitan College. However, we are here as a community, I know I'm not part of this committee, but I am part of the community board. We're here as representatives of the community. The community is clearly saying that they want that bridge there in its place, in addition to the other bridge that was just built. I'm gonna call this, I don't know what the hell that's called.
West Thames.
That's called the West Thames Bridge, is the new one. Well, yeah, it is, and I think part of the frustration of the people who live along Rector, south of Albany Street, and north of West Thames Street, there are a lot of people in that little window there. The only place for them to cross is either that bridge or Albany Street. So my amendment to Mark's friendly amendment would be not to wait until the bridge is taken down, but to do it now and leave the bridge in place, because there are safety concerns right now. It's going to cost $4 million to take it down. And in the process, there is that money that can be spent to maintain it where it is now, can be looking at how, if in fact it can be safely modified. And I know there's going to be a concern raised about fire safety. Where is the DOT? Where are the fire people coming here and telling us it's a fire hazard? I haven't seen them, and that doesn't mean that they haven't been in November, and I wasn't here in November. That's fair.
Come back, because there were a lot of unanswered questions.
Can you speak louder, please?
She said they should come back because there are a lot of unanswered
And
questions.
they should be here. I mean, I don't know.
They
if
never
they're
got back
or
to
not.
us, right? They
I'm not
never,
sure
on
why
those
they're not
questions?
here.
Yeah.
But they
What, the
answered
fire
questions in
department?
November.
Yeah, but it was not very clear. I mean, I don't think their answers were clear. I think we have more information. Other people who are bringing up other concerns that they should respond to. I think they should be here. I mean, Bob and I have done some more research on this topic since November, and the conclusion that I came to is, you know, I'm not taking one side or another. I have a lot of unanswered questions, and the only people that can answer them are DOT, the mayor's office. Otherwise, I can't. I feel like I cannot make an educated decision without answers from the city.
Yeah, I asked the contractor if they would look, he said he was gonna look at what was the contractor again? Skanska. He said the guy rep that was here said he was gonna look at the specs, because I specifically asked, what are the design specs indicate as far as the lifespan of that bridge with modifications? And did they ever get back to us? He said he would get back to us on that.
He's
No,
employed by state DOT, which has not authorized him to do that under the
Yeah.
guise of his contract, so.
Alright, so
I
why
mean,
didn't he say he could do it then?
He said if he could, he would, but he can't.
Alright. That's an important consideration.
Well, except he said that style of bridge, and I looked it up other place, is not upgradable, period. It's an inexpensive, quick design that was put up for
And I
the reasons it was put up.
understand.
But it is not something that can be made something it's not. Which is why Matt Krennic, after saying that,
I know.
also said
I know.
the price of fixing it would be buying a new bridge.
Yeah, I understand.
Because that location doesn't work anyway. So the new bridge couldn't be in that location. So I don't want people to lose track of the big things because they're so busy looking at
How
little
many years
things.
has it been there, Betty?
So that's why I asked that
Like I said,
question.
Not
Yes,
in
and
its entirety.
and we have
They have to take half
resolutions
of it
asking
down to
many
make it
times to
safe.
take it down.
I
I don't want you
don't
to
have
think
You're not
that
listening
the
to
state
the
hasn't
community
wanted
here.
to.
I don't have all the
You're here to
You're not
represent the
listening to
community,
me.
you're not listening to the community.
I'm
There are all
answering-
these people here
Betty, you
who
have to.
want,
Madam Chair,
who
respectfully.
want this bridge. You are,
Okay,
you're
I won't
finished.
answer that
Sir,
question.
sir, please, please let us go,
Listen,
let us pick an order,
hold on a
please,
second.
please.
Guys,
You'll get a chance,
Justine,
please.
Just so everybody understands, a community board meeting runs by Robert's rules, okay? Robert's rules are how all city agencies have to follow. We follow this too. Robert's rules, the community board members argue first, and then members of the public are recognized if they want to speak. That prevents us from going back into a he said, she said. You can hear the information as it comes from anybody who has heard it before. I would appreciate if everyone in the community would actually give us a little bit of accommodation so we can run a meeting. Everybody who wants to talk can, which is why we have Robert's rules. Okay? Does everybody understand where we're going?
That's a departure from the chair's opening statement, but thanks.
As I
I
said,
corrected it.
as I said, we run by Robert's rules, okay? We just don't want this meeting to downgrade into a mob scene, which is not productive for the community at all. Our goal here is safety for everybody, not just one group, but an overall arching look at the community. I am sorry for people who felt that they did not know about this. I implore you who say, I've never heard of any of this, to take a look. Just Google Rector Street Bridge online. Do yourselves a favor. Look at any article that's been written about it in any of the local publications. Carl, I'm going to throw you under the bus. If you look at the Tribeca Trib, it always said at the last paragraph that the Rector Street Bridge was going to be demolished. So whether we think we don't know, you don't know if you moved in here 3 years ago. Of course you're not going to know because you probably don't think of it. You don't look at it. Some of you, I don't remember ever seeing at a committee meeting. I implore you to come, either join a community board, come to a meeting. Don't only be here for one issue. If you want to know what's going on in the community, be involved, get involved.
Well, we're here
Okay.
now.
And I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you're here now, but this is
here
why I am explaining the rules. So do me a favor, please don't snipe at people who say things, whether you agree with them or not, because it's not fair to the people. Everyone here who volunteers is a volunteer of their time, just like you are. Fair enough, everybody?
Yeah, we need to run the meeting
Okay,
properly, so we
so
can,
I'm handing it back to the chair to recognize members of the committee. And if you're wondering why I spoke up, I'm vice chair of the board, okay? I'm sitting back. Betty?
Back to the CB members. Yeah, Justine.
So, what I also was gonna say, when everybody started clapping about it, was, we do represent the community, and I think, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here for everybody else, but I think that what they're saying is, this resolution as written seems to be the voice of the DOT, EEOC, and everybody else saying why it can't be. If we represent the community, it might be our position, and it might be something that would behoove us to take this position to say, all it's here, because this is all valid information, it's all valid points, and it's been presented, but there's also, our job is to present what they're saying, and they're saying is they want to have the bridge, or something like the bridge in its place, and perhaps ask the DOT to come up with solutions and ideas that would, number one, why can't we as a community, but we as a community board ask for a waiver of the handicapped access so we can make the bridge footprint smaller? I believe that every single person who has complained, and again, I could be off because I was out sick a lot last year, but I believe every single member of the community who has come forward has been able-bodied enough to be able to walk up and down the stairs. Okay? Therefore, addressing their particular needs does not necessarily have to have an elevator or a ramp, because there is an opportunity and availability a block away for people who are in a wheelchair or in a ramp or with strollers. And the greatness about what the community has done and what the Battery Park City has done, put together, what the authority has done to put it all together, is we have two bridges and two options. So why can't we do both and have both, and either create a bridge or keep and maintain the one that's there, and use the money of the $4 million that we have already slotted to take it down, work out some deal with the Battery Park City Authority, which I know they have no control, so it's not like they're not stepping up, they have no power to do it. But why don't we ask them to maintain it after the $4 million's done? These are different opportunities, and it's questions to be asked. And there's going to be reasons why we can't, because I can see Tammy wanting to answer me and telling me why we can't do this. None of this is taken away from what the community board has done already. It's not. That bridge that's put in place there is a beautiful bridge. It is handicap accessible. It is a huge asset for kids going from Battery Park City to Millennium High School and all the people on that side. It is a huge asset for people in Fidei coming into 276. Huge. But that doesn't address the needs of the people who are here. And that's all I have to say. And I think the tenor of our resolution needs to reflect the will and wishes of the community, because that's who we represent. And if they tell us to go to jump in a lake, they tell us to go jump in a lake. That's not our problem. Our problem is to represent the community.
Okay, everyone from community board spoken?
I agree with what she said.
Is there anyone sitting at the table who's not a community board member?
Yeah.
We have a board member here. One of you have to get up.
Sorry.
Because you have to conduct board business. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
So Betty, can I say something? Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Betty, I agree with Justine. I mean, we owe it to these people. They've come out to our meeting. They're clearly passionate about the issue. We owe it to these community members to hear them out and hear what they have to say, provided that they have, different arguments than the ones we've heard in the past, which I'm sure many of them do. I just also think that this would not be like a functional meeting without having the city here, without having the FDNY here. Why is the FDNY not here? Like,
We have somebody from the
talked
city,
about
we have
this.
someone from the mayor's office here.
Here right now?
It's actually Doug Adams.
Okay, but like one of the big concerns that we had, right, for me at least, what swayed me last time, to sort of support this resolution, was the fact that it was a fire safety hazard to Metropolitan College. Now, I don't know that that's true anymore. I mean, that's what I heard, but then I went and visited, and it didn't seem the case. And the only person who can really answer that, really, is the city, but FDNY in particular. We have to understand if emergency vehicles cannot have access to Metropolitan College as a result of this bridge. These are questions we need answers
Right, but
to. This meeting is not functional.
This meeting is, I'm glad for your passion, but
You're not FDNY. You're
But
not.
listen to the answer.
We heard you last time. And thank you for coming, and that was very helpful, and you had a lot of answers, but I think that you're just one piece of the puzzle, and we would love to hear what you have to say, but I think we're missing others as well, you know, I
All
mean,
of the agencies report to City Hall, I can speak on their behalf, I'm intimately familiar with the project.
okay. All right, well okay,
And
good, so I'm glad.
I'm gonna go out on the ledge here because we did receive a notice to the community board office from Manhattan College, Metropolitan College, who said the following. 2 individuals recently visited the campus of Metropolitan College of New York and spoke with the first floor security guard on duty. Metropolitan College of New York does not have a staff member with the title of safety manager. The security guard does not speak on behalf of the college. And that's from the CIO.
What does that mean?
What is that?
So there are conversations around that Metropolitan College, it's been presented, has a safe and secure plan for egress, and the bridge is not a factor of it. But the person who spoke to the people who toured was not a spokesperson for Metropolitan College, authorized nor familiar with enough details to be able to speak on behalf of the college.
Sorry, but just point of clarification, what is that piece of information?
It has to do, it answers, there were people from the community who toured and spoke with people there, and representations have been made
That it's not a fire safety hazard. The bridge, the bridge is not a fire safety hazard. So
for
this
the college.
person who said that, it's not
How many years has the bridge been up?
Yeah.
18 years.
The whole bridge or half the bridge? Because they had to take
Well,
half of
because I don't live in that area, the area that we're talking about now.
It's been up, the mayor's office will answer that. They had to take half down to support it because it was falling apart.
Maybe 8.
Quick question, so has it been a fire safety hazard for the last 8 years? So then what changed?
So they took half of the bridge down in order to shore it up.
And then it became a fire safety hazard?
No.
No, I think
So
it
that-
was from the building.
Here, let the mayor's office answer. They're the ones who need to.
Hi, I'm Douglas Adams with the Mayor's Office of Capital Project Development. Many of you know me from many of these meetings. In speaking with FDNY about it, they indicated that the bridge presents an operational deficiency for the adjacent building. From an egress standpoint, the bridge is located to the emergency exit, too close to the emergency exit. FDNY and DOB would never approve something this close to the facility.
How many years does that, yeah, that's the thing.
2002, so 17
So
years.
for 17 years they've let it go.
Right, yes.
Why?
That,
It's a fire safety hazard.
either you're doing something great now or you're doing something terrible
The
then.
door wasn't there when they built the bridge.
Terrible thing, let's be clear.
Because I don't live in
Let's be
that
clear.
specific area. so-
9/11 happened and the bridge was put up. There were no one was handed a waiver, said do you think OSHA handed all the
Oh, well, maybe
workers a waiver
after 5
for
years
getting
or after 10
cancer?
years or after 15
The
years?
bridge was put in
Right.
and a bunch of stuff was ignored. But we can't ignore it forever.
Why is it Metropolitan College's responsibility to set up a different point of egress?
Because that point of egress was never used when the bridge was put up. That door was not used. The entrance and exit to the building was on Rector Street proper. It was not on the west side highway side of the building. So when the bridge was put up, there was no issue. When Metropolitan College moved in there, the Department of Building should not have approved the entrance being put right next to the bridge.
From day one, the state who put up the bridge assumed, and you'll read this in their 2004 EIS, assumed that the Vesey and Rector bridges would be removed when the permanent at-grade crossings and grade separated crossings were in place. Those are all in place.
So it was okay for the fire egress to be temporary, that the people couldn't get out of the building in case of a fire? That's okay for a couple of years, but now it's not okay anymore?
Yeah,
I think I just answered that.
No, but it's such a serious fire safety hazard, how can they let it go on for 17
For any period of time.
years? Yeah, I mean,
The college has only been there since
no, I get
2016.
it, I get 9/11, post 9/11, yes, I get it,
So
okay,
do we
things
just
were
keep
done,
going?
but we're no longer, it's not 2003, it's 2020 now. So
Yes.
it was 2015, 2010, I don't understand, if it was such a fire safety concern, why was it allowed to go on this long?
Because it was felt that it was a larger safety issue to have this crossing.
Can something be done then to alleviate the fire safety concern now in keeping some type of crossing bridge over there, as opposed to tearing it down, in your opinion, so that it's not, it's there for the community, but it's also not a fire safety concern?
Yes.
Okay, that's
The
great.
community is effectively asking for a third permanent crossing. The existing bridge cannot be made permanent for the reasons that were discussed in November and are listed on the resolution. You're asking for a third permanent bridge. More power to you. Go to the state, go to the feds, it's $40 million. It will not be, it cannot be located at this exact location with the
So this
exact
location
foot-
can't be made,
This
turned
bridge
into a...
cannot be made permanent.
So can it be
Is this
kept
bridge
temporary
structurally unsound?
indefinitely?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Because I was one of the individuals from the community who went to visit and spoke to this security agent. That's not the only means of egress, by the way. There are at least two others. So I'm just putting that in
I'm
perspective.
just letting you know what FDNY.
Okay, so I'm just putting that is not the only means of egress. So if there's a,
I didn't say.
I'm just saying. So anyway,
No one said
there are at least 3 fire egresses. I agree that, if that were the only one, I'd be very scared, because yes, it is a problem. But, so my question is, I get it, for the city or the state to actually destroy this bridge, create a new one, 64 million, you can't put a permanent structure, goes into the bedrock, can't do it, fine. So forget about that, it's not a possibility, but why can't this temporary one just be allowed to be temporary indefinitely? It doesn't seem to be falling down, there are limitations to it, there's no ADA access, whatever, but, there are ways to get around that, and use the 4 million to optimize it for us.
I think the items listed on the resolution explain why it gets done.
Regarding ADA access, there's a ramp, I believe there's an elevator.
No, it does work. It works since August.
Excuse me, I have a little bit of a clue on how ADA is like, for me. It's not reliable, it doesn't work, and if you talk to other people like Ann Schwalbenberg and others, they do not use that bridge because it is not accessible. It's not usable. So let's not have walking people who climb the stairs tell me what's accessible and what isn't. It's not.
Nobody was saying that.
Starting in August, we actually reported every time it failed and it was repaired every time. So with that rigorous effort, it actually did run. And it was reliable to the day.
But for
at the
Ann
end.
Schwallenberg in particular, for her to walk to where she needs to go, it is just as inconvenient, if not more so, because she can walk on 2 feet, but she's mobility impaired. It is much closer to her, for her and better for her to take the West 10th Street Bridge. It's closer to her building, it's closer to everything else. She is south of West 10th Street. So.
But let us not say this, wait, sorry, Nick has told us in the past, there is no funding scheduled at this time, budgeted for repairs. So when you talk about it's working, the elevator in this case, in the moment, it will not be repaired. It will only fall into more disrepair. That's a consideration, or should be a consideration. It is, for me as a resident of Battery Park City, I don't want to pay for that liability.
If I may I?
Yes, and then we'll move on, because there were a lot of people who said they wanted to speak.
My answer back to that is, I think it should not be handicap accessible. I think the ramp should be taken down.
Yes.
And I think the elevator should be taken down.
Yes.
That would open up more space for the fire exits and everything else.
Yes.
And that would make it, the gardens would have their space. All you have is stairs on one side, stairs on the other, that may or may not address all the concerns of the fire department, but it would address some.
And
It
it'll get
also
the
would
kids
address
off the
concerns of
highway.
the neighborhood.
We don't have to cross
And-
the highway and get
And
hit by cars.
I understand that it's not, that the waiver that we'd be asking for is to waive ADA accessibility for that bridge. I get it. I don't see why that can't be done.
I would just like to.
You can't stop a law.
But then you have
That's why you have a waiver.
Changing the ADA law? No, make a waiver. I'm saying a waiver, I'm saying
Then you
carve
have
it
no
out.
bridge, so there would be no ADA
There is-
accessibility
Yeah,
over
wait,
there.
I'm also not done, because I don't feel
Fine.
like, I felt like I had,
But I'm saying, if they
I
take
felt
bridge down,
like I was having a
there's
conversation
no
with you, and then
accessibility
you
for anybody.
answered me by saying, well, look at the resolution. I'm agree with
sorry.
that.
I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
felt that was slightly dismissive. So let's just talk about
This is just an addition.
what the issues are that are preventing this temporary bridge from being there indefinitely. Like, I want to understand why we can't do that.
May I?
Yes.
I think it's important to step back and talk through the history that got us to here and why now. It's not an arbitrary timing. So, again, after 9/11, all the crossings were destroyed. This bridge was put up in 2002. It was agreed in a community process, once the Liberty Street Bridge and the Albany Street crossings were built, this bridge would come down. It was later decided with this community, we don't like that decision. We want a second permanent bridge, acknowledging that the temporary bridge is temporary and for the reasons we've all discussed many times, has to be removed. So we want a second bridge. That second bridge was built at West 10th Street. We heard the community loud and clear. We built that third bridge. That opened permanently last week. DPCA or anyone else has the funds to continue to maintain both bridges. So the Rector Street Bridge is closed. We're now removing it per all the previous conversations with the community, with the decisions that were made by the community. What I'm now hearing is, okay, that's what we decided then. We'd like a third stab at this, and we want a third permanent bridge. Great.
But what's wrong with that? So what? Things change. I mean,
Okay.
but we're hearing the community and they're saying that they want a third.
Okay.
Now, I get that the funds are limited. I mean, you will have the $4 million that you're going to use to, to destroy the bridge. But
Okay.
to me, that's not, I mean, okay, so,
Let me,
okay.
I'll continue. So, the emergency access issues, short of creating new access points for the 60 West building, cannot be addressed with this bridge. They cannot. So,
Can you,
there's
can you
there's-
explain that a little bit more, can you go into a little more detail? What do you mean, though?
the bridge, the east landing, the entire east structure is too close to that building.
And,
DOB,
and then just saying, so what happens? So people come out the door and that's the safety issue?
I don't know what would happen if the columns were higher.
No, but I'm saying, I know that there's more than one emergency. There are at least two, maybe even a third. So people would come out that door, it's a little tight.
FDNY and DOB would never approve that today. And you're asking, can we make this bridge permanent? FDNY, DOB says no. We cannot. It does not satisfy code. We were never asked in 9/11. You're asking us now, and the answer is no. It will not satisfy code. This structure, this close to this building, will not satisfy code.
But he's not saying why.
I can continue.
Okay.
The subs,
I mean, why is it not up to code?
there's also the second floor that access is needed.
It's her meeting, so
Let's get the answer people have been asking for.
The subsurface utilities, we discussed this in some detail in November. The bridge is basically sitting on a pile of concrete plopped on top of the street. In the street are a bunch of utilities. If you were building this as a permanent structure, as we did with West Street, clear all those utilities, go down to bedrock. If there's ever a water main break or some need to get to these utilities, which inevitably there will be, may not be tomorrow, may not be 10 years, you will need to get to these utilities someday. You cannot. You cannot do it with these footings.
And nobody needed to get to that utility, those utilities in the last 18 years?
Correct.
And we had a hurricane.
This egress could be
I was
moved?
surprised, yeah. Those, okay.
I'm not. I used to work for a natural gas utility, and some facilities you need to get into every 5 years. Others sit there for over 100 years without being
the
attached.
building's fully constructed. There's no place
AGL Resources, you can look at my LinkedIn profile.
Excuse me, everyone, please listen to the answers you're asking for.
Ma'am, you've been talking, so I can hear your
In
conversation.
terms of the ADA issue, I don't see that as like a non-starter for making the bridge permanent, honestly. I do see the other ones as non-starters for making it permanent.
You could get a waiver.
Two other items that I don't know have come up recently, but would have come up in far earlier discussions. The state's 2004 environmental impact statement regarding the reconstruction of Route 9A through this area assumed that the VZ and Rector bridges would come down when the permanent crossings were built. An EIS, there are legal obligations around an EIS. You would need to do an additional EIS to keep this bridge. They're done all the time.
Yeah.
Great. Secondly, or lastly, 60 West Street was also identified in the EIS as a historic resource. Having a bridge adjacent to this building would require Landmarks Preservation Commission approval. I can guarantee you they would not approve this bridge next to that building if asked, and they would have to be asked if it was made permanent,
Do you know why?
because it's not historically appropriate to the building that's 5 feet from it. That's the answer.
When is it historically landmark? Historically.
It's like a coastline, I love
It is
it.
a historic resource.
When did it get that designation?
Whether this falls to the city or there's also the State Office of Historic Preservation and something, SHPO, that would weigh in here. And that doesn't, I don't know if it's landmark. If it is landmark, certainly it would be an LTC issue, not landmark. It wouldn't necessarily not be an LPC issue, but it would certainly be a State Office of Historic Preservation issue.
Anything else?
Saying that this bridge is like somehow interfered with historical value. Like, is this an
No, but no agency is calling us up volunteering, hey, this building here, we don't know if it's not.
It seems like it's a little bit of
Whether it's invented or not, I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
Historic resource identified in the environmental protection.
Okay, anything else? Any other?
That's all.
So the two biggest ones are the fire safety and the utilities.
Yeah, and the design life of the building.
Which is what?
Which is?
So, this is discussed as if it's a science. There's no science regarding the design life of the structure. But the design life of this structure is far less than the design life of a permanent structure. And that's where it has to be.
Generally, in design specs, there would be an estimation. That's why I asked that question in November, and no one ever got back to us on that.
There is not. At the November meeting, I said what I just said now, which is true.
Have you seen the original design specifications?
There's no design life listed in the original spec.
So you looked for it and it wasn't there?
I've seen one.
Right.
No, I did not, but I promise you it's not.
So what does that mean?
Okay, I don't know what that means, but...
Scanning for as long as it's capable of scanning, however long that may be. Clearly not as long as a permanent bridge, but for as long as that may be.
I don't have to.
Okay.
Who does?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Let's recognize Bob.
Okay, what I would like to say is the obvious thing, that all these people are here because the bridge is important to them, and it really matters in their life, and to take this away actually injures them. It might be true that however many years ago, whoever was in the community made some decision about that. I don't even know those guys, I have no idea who they are. No one here knows any of those people.
I disagree.
Who among everyone here had anything to do with the decision to build the West Thames Bridge or even knew about it?
I've been involved with this community board for 15
I'm
years.
talking about,
Tammy.
yes?
She did, no, she was,
And so, and you
I was here.
voted that one should be, I had no idea about these things.
That thing's been voted on like 3 times.
I
Six
wasn't, you know.
6 times.
It depends what committee you're in, I didn't know anything about it.
It
This
was
was
in
full
the
board.
I
Battery,
started,
Bob, when we were
Oh,
in
that's a-
geographic committees, up until the change
Battery Park
recently, it was in the Battery Park City Committee, when they first came with designs, when they revised designs. Tom Goodkind was here talking about we want roofs. The community board didn't like the building. There were many presentations and conversations in every single one of those. So yes, there have been many opportunities when they first designed West Thames, when they wanted to put up the Rector Bridge, when they needed to come.
what year was it?
When they needed to come down, when they needed to reinforce Rector Bridge because it was falling apart and unstable and take half of it down.
I remember
Well,
that.
They
Tammy-
came to the community board when they took down the Vesey Street
Tammy,
Bridge.
I can clarify. In 2001, it was a Battery Park City Committee. When it was 2003, it was a Battery Park City Committee. When it was 2009, it was a Battery Park City Committee. When it was 2013, it was a Battery Park City Committee. When it was 2014, it was planning. When it was 2015, it was executive committee. all of them would have gone to the full board since they've been passed.
But nevertheless, for everyone here, this is going to inflict pain in their lives. And this really matters to all these people. And all the community is asking for is to look at this as a problem-solving situation, work together as much as possible to preserve the bridge where it is, to remain in use as long as possible. And then if it turns out that there's some problem that we discover in the process of trying to learn about this, then it's fair enough to let go of it. But at least everyone here would like to give it the best try possible to save the bridge and make everyone's life as safe as possible. Because we really did establish that most of the people, rather than going to the new bridge, which is in a very dim and dangerous spot itself, rather than trying to use that bridge, they're going to start crossing at the intersection, which is, we actually know that, so we're actually throwing the people into the stream of traffic rather than protecting them. All these people are here because they care about that difference. And the community board's job is to respond to the actual people. That we have these meetings that are little closed covens and things, and I really try to make the community board have a reach beyond these little rooms. And so these people are the reach. And now the community board has a chance to talk to the real people in the community. Not a couple of people. I mean, I show up to these meetings, and I'm proud to do that. But what's important about that is having the reach to the other people. It's when we actually reach to the other people and bring them in that's when they don't get listened to.
Okay, Robert, and let's go back to some of the reasons of why that location, since you bring up two different issues. One is a bridge, a fourth bridge, and one is having that specific location. They are two separate things. The argument of that location, I think, needs to be addressed first. It has been explained why that location does not work.
But it worked for 17 years.
And that was very lucky, and people should be glad about that.
And saved a lot of lives.
Be glad about it.
Excuse me, but that's kind of my vision of life. You're glad when you have it because you lose everything. That's what I feel in life.
Excellent.
But second of all, I want you to know, hey, there are many times in here where they wanted to remove the bridge. So it isn't as if it's been sitting there inertly for 18 years.
And
I wanna
bothered
make sure
no
people
one.
don't get that to get that kind of viewpoint, because that's not exactly true. This goes back actually quite a few years ago, that all the resolutions about, please let's extend the life so that we can get the West Thames operational. That counted for almost 8 years of these extensions. And so I want to put it in perspective to people. It wasn't like everybody wasn't looking and expecting Rector to go in the near future. For 8 years, there were postponements asked in response to the community, waiting for West Thames Bridge. The timing now is because of the completion being imminent for the West Thames Bridge. I also want you to realize, I live in North Battery Park City. We also pay for those bridges, and we have 0 bridges. So I'm sure a lot of you will step forward and complain about we all need one on every block as well. And all of our pilots should go up to reflect all of those bridges that need to be built.
Not pilots going up.
Well, but someone's going to pay for it. Otherwise, we'll move on with the recommendations we've gotten about the parties that need to be petitioned about new bridges.
Can I just ask one question? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go for it.
Yeah, no, Brittany.
She has a question.
Ask him a question.
Yeah.
That's like totally.
Excuse me.
Doug?
Douglas, I have a question for you. So, it has 3 emergency exits. Is that like up to code? Is that like a requirement? Why couldn't this one be removed if there's 2 other exits? That way the bridge could stay, because there's not an issue of a fire safety problem. Is that an option, to just like remove this door as like a fire safety door, just make it inoperable? Yeah.
It's hard to imagine that.
Like removing the door and
It's hard to
just having
imagine
the
that
2.
taking away an emergency access point would make it more safe.
Put it
There's 2 others.
But regardless, in response to me asking FDNY about this, they said it's not just the door, there's also the 2nd floor that you can't get to from a fire truck. And simply that DOB and FDNY would never approve a structure like this close to another building.
But they have, because the college has been there for 3 years.
Well, no, they were never asked.
If the DOB and FDNY weren't asked, then how'd they get a certificate of occupancy? How are they running a business in Manhattan? I do build outs all the time, I can't do anything
Yes,
like
yeah.
that.
Hey, this is arguing between two people. Wait your turn if you want to disagree and ask specific questions, and please, instead of being hammered, okay? Let's try and let him answer the questions here. If you have a question, raise your hand.
But the information he's answering, he's not giving you qualified information. No, but he's not. And she made a very good point just
Are you aware
now.
of my conversation with
I just
FDNY
listened to
earlier
what you
today?
had to say, sir. And it just
Ma'am,
doesn't sound like
I
you are
asked you-
completely qualified
It is-
in what you're saying. You don't work for the FDNY, you don't work for the building department, you're not an engineer, you're from the mayor's office.
He
And
represents
this lady next to you made a very good point.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Absolutely.
Betty,
I said,
anybody
yeah,
else?
no, I'm sorry, this is getting more emotional than reasonable. I'm sorry people aren't willing to listen, but please try to show a little bit of respect and order because it is a meeting. And you will listen to everybody else speak as well. Bob, since you've had multiple choices, let's move on to some of the other people first.
I just wonder.
But wait 1 second, anyone else on the committee, because I saw some hands.
Oh, yeah,
So
sorry.
just to clarify, so we can't take away the third door.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Could
And
that be
asking,
something that we could have?
excuse me, and asking FDNY, does this building satisfy code? No, it is operationally deficient, we would never approve it.
Even with removing the door?
I
Or just like in
didn't-
general?
I don't know the answer.
Okay.
Right, Michael?
Yeah, sorry, I'll be quick. So I'm like super, very heartened by everyone turning out for this, and I think one thing that we're getting from this conversation is that it's not just that people want this bridge, it's that people don't feel safe crossing West Street, which is unacceptable. And so I know, Mark, I think you and Tammy were talking about earlier, like adding a whereas if we go ahead with this resolution along the lines of like adding traffic improvement. I mean, it's never going to be feasible for us to add a pedestrian bridge at every crossing on West Street, but we can advocate for making it safer for us to cross at grade because
I think
mean, as a
that
community,
language
it's
was
yeah.
agreed to be in the
Yeah.
resolution, is that right?
Yeah.
Straw poll, everyone
Yeah,
agrees
we
with that?
talked about, we asked DOT to provide that, if this bridge would indeed come down, we
Yeah.
asked DOT for that.
Especially since we're losing
So we
crossing.
should, that should end up being in the therefore be it resolved, not necessarily in a whereas.
Correct.
Because we
Okay.
are asking specifically DOT to look at
Yes.
specific intersections.
But
There
like
have
DOT
been,
should be here, they should have looked into that, they should be here, so we could have an answer for them,
They-
from them, like whether that is feasible, can we do it? Like, this is why I'm saying, these
there
agencies.
have been some improvements to the intersections. If you think that,
No, I'm saying instead of that bridge, if we could have something there, that specific
they
location.
recently changed the Albany street lights and added a turning lane to enhance pedestrian and bicycle and vehicular safety. And that was done in 2019 and part of the overall plan. So all traffic lights now on southbound West Street from Chambers to Albany have a right turn lane.
Okay.
And the lights for the pedestrians are timed to allow more time for the pedestrians to cross the street, both east, west, north, south, without having turning cars.
Yes, and so those things have been asked for a
One
while.
thing that has been done, it's not everything, but it's a start.
Right, and Battery Park City's been very diligent about that for years. As far as asking for it, the whereas, to me, it's not conditional on the bridge coming down or not. People crossing a street level are occurring all the time. So to not worry about them until only the people crossing the bridge, they're not contingent, it doesn't even need to be contingent. It can be a reasonable
Why don't we
ask.
see how the whole board feels?
I think it should be a therefore be it resolved to
Right.
say, this is not a negotiable point. You must study the intersections of Rector, which is what this bridge helped with, and Albany.
Right, there's no.
Well, but if there should be contingent on the bridge.
That's the whole point.
There is an intersection at Rector on the east side, and for the people who have come and spoken to the community board, who live on the east side, north of Rector, have expressed concerns because crossing Rector and Carlisle are a little bit more dicey. Now, there is a traffic light hanging at Carlisle that's not utilized yet. I don't know what the plan is. DOT hasn't come to us, but that doesn't mean that we don't ask for it, because it's not only the people in Battery Park City that we have to ensure safety for,
absolutely.
it's the people on the other side of the highway as well. So we need to make sure, and therefore be it resolved, that we look for, request DOT to do an immediate, not next year, but an immediate look, and recommendations I mean, we could even say before the bridge comes down. That does not mean anything other than before you get the whole dang thing gone. We can certainly ask for them to evaluate intersections and make safety plans.
That's being
Respectfully, that doesn't logically follow, because this intersection has nothing to do with the bridge. The intersection that you're talking about is from one side of Rector Street to another side of Rector Street.
It does.
That's true.
Along West Street.
If your
And it
child
doesn't-
goes
it
to
doesn't
276, it has a profound impact.
It does.
Because you are walking south another 3 blocks to get to the next bridge to cross over. So the families that have talked to us from 276 who were here at the last meeting specifically said that intersection. So respectfully, no. Because then they've also brought it up at a 276 PTA meeting that they had concerns walking down the east side to get to the West Thames Bridge. They did not care if there was they take the Rector Street Bridge, and when the question was asked if there was a traffic light and a pedestrian crossing at that intersection, would that be helpful? They said anything would be helpful. We'd love to hear what the possibilities are. So that's what we're also responding to. So yes, it does affect that intersection, not in the way perhaps that you're thinking and anticipating, but it does. It has impact there too.
Yeah, Justine and Bob, I know you're CB members, but do not too many members. I want to open it up because there's a large number of people who are here and have been waiting. So if you don't mind, we'll get back to you, but let's broaden it out to speaking. Yes?
Martin Hallwall, I'm at 300 Rector. I would like to keep the bridge. I have pretty opinionated. I respond mostly to what I've heard this evening about the history, that this was always conditional or temporary. I don't care. I wasn't there then, I'm here now. These are not binding documents. These are statements of intention. There are no contracts written on that. There's no enforcement power. Piffle to the past. The only reality is now. The only reality is this room. Piffle to that. Next. One of the whereases that the people going to Mercy College are crowded on the sidewalk, so we have to walk 3 blocks so they don't have to shuffle down on the sidewalk. It's called the balancing of the equities. The people who live here versus the people who are transient. We win. We live here. The balance of the equities. I hear about. I walked. I took pictures. It's 3 feet wide by 25 feet long. We're going to spend $40 million to widen a sidewalk. Okay. I hear that the staircase is too close. $4 million, we could move the staircase. If we can't, let's try. At the end of this, whereas for all these reasons, the community board resolves that positive efforts be made to resolve favorably all these lacunae and deficiencies. We are here to win, we are here to represent, we are here to keep the bridge, whereas all these things, and so forth.
Yes. You are heard.
I can go on, but I'll yield to the other people.
Thank you.
My name is Declan Moran. I am here to also speak in favor of the bridge. I would like to say from personal experience, today, now that the bridge has been closed, on my commute, I went around to Albany because that was a simpler, better experience for me. It seems to be simpler for everyone, too, because even only on the west side, I didn't look at the east side, I was going from the west side, the amount of people waiting to cross at Albany had more than doubled. At, like, say, 10 or so people, but that's just within the one crossing. Who knows how many will gather up when it gets more towards rush hour, because this was only 7 a.m. And on my way across, I was looking at the West Thames Street Bridge the entire time, see if I could make a point. And I saw one person, one single person walking east to west that morning. And that was compared. So the amount of people that would go Albany instead would be literally tenfold what the West Thames Street Bridge would use. Although I would like to say, if it's simply a matter of needing a crossing, if there could be a pedestrian crossing at Rector Street to go across to Battery Park City, I know that could potentially, at least, if there, a compromise must be made, that would be a, sorry, mine's already passing my head. It would be a potentially very it wouldn't make everyone entirely happy, but it would certainly be better than just having nothing there at all.
Great, well, thank you, and
Right.
I promised, oh,
Sorry, I
sorry.
forgot. Because that is the most, it's like the most convenient area, because you know, Rector Street, that's where all the subways are.
Right.
For all the commuters, it's the simplest way to get basically anywhere in the city.
My name is Paul Feldscher. I live on at 33 Rector. It's the corner of Rector and West on the east side. These are my kids, and our neighbor who lives on just across the bridge. They've all been very patient, perhaps the most polite people in the room. They've grown up crossing that bridge. I apologize to the board. I know that you guys have met on this many, many times. I apologize for not having been more aware of this issue, but we just weren't. We've lived there for many years, and we were unaware. We'd heard rumblings about it, we were unaware, and we were certainly unaware that it was imminent. I would simply ask, as it seems to be represented by some of your colleagues on the board, that now that so many of us are aware, yes, it's a very emotional issue because, I mean, Mr. Douglas? Mr. Adams? One of your office's signature policies at Vision Zero is failing massively in this city, and in our neighborhood, there are constantly pedestrian. We see there are constantly people getting hit on that corner. You're right. That should be this should not be contingent upon the bridge being there or not. That corner needs to be addressed. Rector Street needs to be addressed. But this whole issue needs a little more time. We are aware of it now. Our heads are out of the sand. I apologize for my absenteeism in the past. But this is a vital thing for our community. I had to cross today, and idiotically, so I crossed at the bridge is closed, so I had to cross over to Battery City Park. I made it across the highway, but idiotically, I forgot there's a bike lane, and I almost got hit by a bike because as soon as I got over the highway, which the bridge goes over, it also goes over the bike lane, I stepped into the bike lane, and my fault.
No. It's not your fault. You're a pedestrian. Pedestrian has the right of way,
right, but
not the bicycle.
But that is literally a funnel into a playground.
But yeah,
that bridge.
Point noted.
It's that is 50% of the traffic. I see it from my windows. 50% of the traffic at least is kids going right into the playground. It's just I don't know what the rush is. It's not falling down today. Let's take a little bit more time. Give us an opportunity. Give us a bigger room. Give us a little more time to grow as a community. I mean, thank you. I'm very thankful to my neighbors who brought this to my attention, who've been spreading the word. But it's in our schools in the neighborhood. We would all like to get together and address this. I don't understand why there's any. It's all just about safety. I don't know why there's animus. I can understand frustration that you guys have had 6 amendments about this or 6 resolutions about this. But as the gentleman said, that is in the past. We're here in the present. Now we're aware. And we are the community. You are our community board. Thank you for all you do. Please represent us on this issue.
Back to this side, and we'll go over there.
I second the thought that I've been a resident of this community for several years. I've heard rumblings over time about possible future happenings with the bridge. Never until after this November meeting, apparently, when there began to become public circulation of a petition, was I first really aware of the imminent situation of this. And I even at that point had no idea how imminent it was, that right at the beginning of the new year this bridge would be coming down. So I just think that for all these people coming out now, there really is perhaps an urgency and a genuine fear and coming to this information genuinely, not with any sort of cynicism in their hearts, not having heard of this and just having been too lazy to come to meetings in the past. Because I try to be a responsible member of my community, and I genuinely did not know I had this opportunity until this meeting. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be listening to you guys. As far as I understand it, it seems to be mostly an issue of common sense that seems to be skipped over. As was said, if there were an intersection, a crossing at Rector Place or at Rector Street on either side, that would alleviate a lot of the need, but there's obviously not really, it's not designed for that. So instead, we've decided to have the 2 permanent bridges be placed where there already is crossing, which is wonderful. It helps people from stopping having to cross on the street itself, which is helping to save people. But to then take away what is the main artery of that, which I understand this argument has probably been brought to you before as somebody who has not been at these meetings before, that forces people to go on these other routes to Albany to
Ladies, could you pay attention
to
to him,
the-
please?
I'm showing her the map so she can understand what he's saying because she doesn't
So
know
we're
the
looking at, why or why not we can have there could be a crossing.
A redesign.
So
Sure.
we're trying to understand if there
By all
could be,
means,
if
by all
DOT
means.
can do, and it's not the case, it can't happen there
Right.
necessarily. But there's one at Albany.
Right, and that's what I was saying.
But maybe
That's
that
what I was-
conversation
I was
another
saying
time.
that maybe not be a possible thing, but
That could be a template, that could be a template.
But what we have instead is the bridge that acts as an artery in and out, and that has worked very well. And one thing I don't really understand is that the new bridge, West Thames Bridge, while it is a beautiful addition to the community and it has the potential to alleviate a lot of traffic in and out of the neighborhoods, it seems to have been designed in the least common sense way for people to gain access to it. The entrance on the west side of the street, the entrance is surrounded almost peninsula-like on 3 sides by a dog park, which if they would only be willing to move one little portion of the fence, you'd be able to access the stairs on either side. So for residents of those buildings, they wouldn't have to walk all the way around to gain access to the stairs. And then on the east side, it doesn't shoot down onto the sidewalk where you would think there would be access to it like the Rector Street Bridge does. It shoots off an alleyway. So I'm hard pressed.
Into a garage.
An alleyway at the end.
A huge parking
Oh yeah,
garage.
I understand. It's
For the street
an
that
area
never
where
stops
there's,
on them.
if you've ever looked up, is teeming with pigeons that leave their droppings everywhere there, and all that may not be a safety issue, but I'm almost done. But is also for people who aren't already familiar with the entrance to the bridge, I could see it being a safety issue because they wouldn't know where to go and could just be wandering around that area. I wouldn't know where to go if I didn't live there. So.
Excuse me, this meeting is not about the West Thames Bridge.
Okay.
But because it's an issue to so many people, I'm gonna have Tammy, it looked like you had some comments to make about that bridge.
Actually, I was, the two of us were looking at the map pursuant to
And trying
who's
to
ever
come up with
commented.
some solution.
So
I
the question,
apologize. I was trying to explain more fully why
May I?
why the
Right.
desperation
May I?
around the Rector
May I?
Street. Yes, I apologize.
so one of the things that we talk about is safety. And the question is, in the north side of Battery Park City, when you're looking at the crossings, which are almost identical, a little bit less traffic, I would assume to say, at Vesey and at Murray and at Warren, right? We pretty much say those look all the same as Albany Street. The advantage that Vesey has is it has a pedestrian manager who's there all day through the evening. So maybe if there is no way, whatever, but to increase safety, why couldn't the community board go on record saying that we want state DOT and NYPD and whoever else might be involved in it to have the same type of pedestrian management system at the Albany Street crossing?
Because Goldman
So-
Sachs is not
Well, wait a minute. Hey, look, I hear everybody's gonna say Goldman Sachs is not there. Guess what? Brookfield Properties is right there. And Brookfield Properties has a large, massive space. So I don't see why, when we talk about public and private partnerships and bridges and things like that, that we couldn't find a Goldman Sachs type solution to serve both the community and the office workers who are in that building. So that to me seems like it would solve safety concerns, which is really the main issue of trying to get across the street. So why can't we insist that there become a pedestrian management position at that intersection due to the traffic? Yes for studies, yes for this, yes for that, but if the bridge is coming down, ensure that the bridge comes down not without a person who would be there.
So that would be the alternative, no
Asking
Rector
for
Street
it
Bridge,
every
but maybe
night,
having a
as it
crosser.
is.
Specifically, the
Albany.
Rector West Street intersection is what
No,
you're speaking of?
Albany
At all.
Street,
There is-
the Albany Street
There
where
is a
everyone's.
person there.
No, that's not.
There's a cop there.
Not to the same type of level of commitment for pedestrian
And
safety.
that's for pedestrians, that
as-
top is there for traffic.
So would
So-
that be something that would be of interest to this community?
I think.
Yeah, no, I think those are two worthwhile additions.
What?
The ones to the actual signals as well as.
But the officers are not.
Officers are not pedestrian managers. There's a difference in New York City vernacular between a traffic safety person and a pedestrian manager. If you notice, the Vesey Street crossing has a pedestrian manager. They manage pedestrians. They stand in the street, but they tell the pedestrians when to walk, when not to walk, and can stop traffic.
The bridge is such an awesome
A
pedestrian manager.
Thank you.
Because we're trying to come up with
I
a
understand,
solution
I apologize, I was snarky,
It was
I gotta go.
snarky
I
and
was-
not helpful.
Okay, I don't like
concern,
you. I gotta
but
go.
also
We're not
to
talking about
concern
Albany
the
Street
safety-
now either. We're
The
talking about a
safety
bridge.
issues, the valid safety issues that the city is protecting, why this bridge has to come down. We're trying to come up with a solution.
I appreciate it.
Why is a crossing guard for pedestrian safety at Albany Street not something that would.
I'm not ready to sit sugar for the bridge.
What's wrong with that? What's the issue? Access is helpful. It's helpful. Why not? It's a helpful.
It adds to safety, but it doesn't add to decongestion.
It is helpful.
Decongestion, what are you talking about?
Access from the neighborhood to the other side.
It does too.
If there's just someone to help cross, it helps with safety, but there's already lights there that people cross at, so it's not gonna speed up or, it's not gonna change the
But
ability.
I understand that people are not crossing there because they're scared that they don't feel
And
like
I said
it's
it,
safe.
I said it would have changed safety there. and
That's
so-
the main, that's the.
Okay, so
She
let's,
can have.
I didn't disagree with you.
So, can I just say something, because I think the problem is, as we try and solve this, there's nothing safer than more bridges. Okay? But I'm hearing are very expensive, right? $40 million. So, and they take a lot of time and planning and approval, and the current bridge will not get approved in a shape and form like that. So what are we doing removing a bridge? We know they're safe, we know how expensive they are to replace. What are we doing?
Because there are safety issues with this bridge.
maybe
I would love to keep the bridge, all things being equal. I would love to keep the bridge. But what we're hearing is that it's a fire safety hazard to Metropolitan College, and there are utilities underground that cannot be accessed, which is also a safety issue. So listen, if we can resolve that, if we can get rid of those problems, if we can have a way to work around that,
they can shore that bridge
I would love
And
to
I totally agree that
exactly.
the effort should be trying to work around these problems, because we know that
Yeah, we have
if
to
bridge goes down, we
understand
will not get it
delay
back.
Hearing
taking
from the
it
city
down
that
right
it's not
immediately.
possible.
there's no workaround.
Nothing's not possible. We're American.
But if they take it down in 2 months' time, we won't have the ability to try to work through these problems. So I think that's what we are looking for, the ability to maybe
Are you gonna call on
not put the head of the utility trouble to this.
Yes, let's call on a couple more people.
I would like
Again, some of you aren't going to acknowledge some huge problems. There's only so much we can do. It's also kind of sad that people are not interested in other safety because it kind of suggests safety isn't the real issue on people's minds. So, let's go down back to this side.
How about this?
You've got it.
What? As an architect, there's always a solution to any of these problems. Whatever I've heard here, it's all doable, there's always a solution.
Yes.
First of all, I want to state the obvious. You, as a community board, have a communication problem, because to have all these people show up at the last minute, once the bridge is closed, that's on you. That's not on us. Because once we got the information, we were here. Second, for the price of the West Thames Bridge and how over budget that was, this community should have 3 or 4 bridges. Now that we're talking city and the city councilor is always talking about pedestrian safety, again, there's nothing safer than a bridge. I would suggest a simple resolution, keep this bridge up until you have a permanent solution at Rector Street.
Next, we're going to hear from someone from Councilwoman Chin's office.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Please speak.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Drummond. I'm with Councilmember Chin's office. I'm just going to read a very quick statement. My colleague Cora is passing out a statement that Councilmember Chin released earlier today. I'll just paraphrase it because I know you guys have a lot to discuss. But basically, Councilmember Chen is actually in support for keeping the Rector Street Bridge up and going. That's first and foremost. And she says that she firmly stands with the 2,700 Lower Manhattan neighbors in urging the city and state to engage the community about alternatives towards the transportation safety assets in Rector Street Bridge. While this conversation has dragged on for years, the community is still waiting for answers to this critical question. With millions of dollars of state funding committed to building the West Thames Bridge, the community has been fighting for fairness and reciprocity in this process. We ask the city and state to dedicate a comparable level of attention and analysis to the alternative plan that rehabilitates the Rector Street Bridge. Given the state's role in this conversation, I have asked Governor Cuomo to intervene, and I hope he can be a partner in our efforts. In August of 2019, I sent a letter outlining my support to preserve the bridge and delay any demolition process until the community is fully engaged. While my office is still waiting for a formal response, I have not wavered on my position. Today, I encourage the community board to join me and hundreds of Battery Park City residents to call on a robust process that engages all possible alternatives and preserves this vital amenity.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Johnson. I've been living here for 26 years. I'm working down here for 40 years, and I've been to most of the meetings. That sign went up outside the bridge about a month ago. Okay, number one, the bridge is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. So they let Metropolitan College go there. Okay, so that has nothing to do with our bridge, because our bridge has to come down because Metropolitan was moved in there. So there's a little, there's an issue there with the mayor's office allowing this to happen. So that's number two. Number three, the bridge is there. So I don't understand why you want to take it down. The elevator probably hasn't worked the first 10 years it was up. Then all of a sudden it's starting to work. So as living down here and taking that bridge all the time, safety issue, it just makes a lot more sense. If you have to walk all the way down to West Thames, that makes absolutely no sense for somebody on Rector Street. So I'm obviously for the bridge, and I think this is ridiculous, sorry to say to you, that we're in this room where you have 10 people on each side waiting outside, while we're not downstairs in the auditorium where more people can be here. So I don't understand what this is about. It's like having a small meeting for a certain amount of people. So I think that was unfair. But,
Sorry, just answer that, this is the regular meeting
okay,
space, so,
well, you have
sorry.
to figure out there's going to be 20, another 30% of people, 40%.
Well, not necessarily, but nevertheless, unfortunately, that's the reason why it's here.
Hi, my name's Clay. I'm a 16-year-old. I live in the community. I no longer live in Battery Park, but I did for many, many years. Took this bridge all the time. I think it's really important, and I just want to start with just a clarifying question. Is there before I continue, is there a current plan to put a crosswalk where the bridge exists?
It's not possible, just look at it.
It's not physically possible to do so.
No, it's not.
Okay, so it's not physically possible to put a crosswalk where the bridge is. And I think that the community as a whole already agrees that the point of access across the West Side Highway there to Rector Street is important, especially because of the accessibility to the Rector Street 1 train station, which many, many, many people in the community take to get to work and just have greater access to the rest of the city. It's important. So I understand the safety concerns here, but I don't understand how a better solution is to have nothing. And I think the community, it is a community. The community's, it's in the name. And if the community wants the bridge to stay, it should be the responsibility of the community board, rather than having an argument as to whether or not they want the bridge to stay, to represent the interests of the community in exploring every single possible solution to keep the bridge before we are all out of options.
Can I just explain to you, everyone keeps on saying, everyone keeps on saying, it's the community, you have the onus of representing the community members want this. You're not the only members of the community. Why are your access and, safety concerns more important than the safety concerns of people in Metropolitan College, hundreds of whom can die if there's a fire.
If they really care that much, they would have showed up.
Why?
Because they chose to put their door there during the truck that already fires.
If a natural was coming down, if a fire truck was coming down, no, I'm talking everyone first. I understand pedestrian safety costs in that area, I understand accessibility to the subways. But why does that have greater weight than people in Metropolitan College who in the event of a fire
It's clear that the
actually
community
die en
board,
masse?
the city,
Why is that okay?
do not have all the information.
Well,
You're the one who brought up how many
Apparently
emails.
he does.
I have meetings with the FDNY, they can tell you one thing one day and the other thing the
I
other
don't
day.
know, but
So it does, that's
apparently
what
we have a member of the, we have someone from the mayor's office here who's giving us the answers. Again, I would like DOT, FDNY, and, and utilities here, but this is what we got, okay? I
Let's
requested they
get
be
the
here.
information.
But what I'm saying to you is, what really bothers me is, we are the owners to represent the community, and we do, but you're not the only members of the community.
Nobody
The
ever
other
asked
members of
who
the
we were.
community are the members of the
Nobody ever
We're most affected by this particular
No, but we
topic.
have a
Actually, you're not.
responsibility to represent you,
Okay,
as well as
where's
the
everyone
students
else?
in Metropolitan College,
Because they
who
haven't
in the
been
event
told
of a
what they have
fire,
to pay for new ones, so you don't
like,
know.
it could be a disaster situation, hundreds of people can die in the event of a fire.
Hold on, let's stop arguing back and forth.
It's not
This is not being productive.
Stop being so narrow. I feel to some degree there's a narrow-mindedness here. Like you're not looking at the full picture. There are other people whose safety is at risk.
Betty?
We have to think about that. We're proposing other solutions like a cross guard at Albany Street. You seem to reject that. I mean, we're trying. We represent you. We represent you, but we represent other people too.
I'd just like to
And
clarify.
their safety is, their safety
Let's go, let's get other people,
Absolutely,
let's
I'd just
tag
like
it.
to clarify
And
my,
I'm
my
gonna-
point here and
and
exploring
I'm gonna-
every possible
I'm
outcome.
gonna put
Really what I
down-
should have added
I
is
would like to
Okay, listen,
exploring
Elizabeth,
every possible
Elizabeth,
outcome
I'm gonna put
for
down
safety
2
of
minutes.
Metropolitan.
If you wanna speak from this point forward, it's a 2-minute rule.
Okay.
This is
Fair enough.
the first topic on our agenda. If you'd like to stay for the redesign of Broadway, south including protected bike paths, I really hope you do. If you ride a bike, it'll be an awesome ad. If you have any concerns, please stay and talk to us about it. But from this point forward on this topic, I am saying 2 minutes. If you have something new to add to the discussion, please do. If you don't, please just say, I agree, and stop there. Because we are not making progress, and we're an hour and 15 minutes in. Everybody got it? We're good? Betty, back to you.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna let Justine speak, 'cause her hand's been up, but please stick to the time frame and let's get the other neighbors.
I have a question for Mr. Adams, the mayor's office. If in fact, as you said, it's not a non-starter to possibly make a waiver to have the bridge be non-handicapped accessible, i.e. get rid of the elevator in front of Metropolitan College, what does the FDNY say about fire safety? The elevator is removed, and then that big footprint that's in front of the doors goes away. You still have the stairs, you still have something else, but would that be a mitigating factor to be able to keep the bridge in place? Along with, I have to say, the pedestrian managers across the street. Guys, realize that they're stretching, trying to figure out ways to help us. We need those pedestrian managers now. But I want to go to, my big question was, what if, and if you don't have an answer today, that's okay. That's part of what the purpose is of asking questions. Everybody has always said, when I said, well, let's get rid of the elevator, make it not handicapped accessible, because we've got a bridge that is.
My comment on the ADA issue was that I didn't see it as a life safety issue versus the fire issues
Correct.
with 60 West and versus the subsurface utilities. The elevator itself wouldn't change the footprint. It would change a very small, the elevator isn't shown in that picture. The elevator takes up
The elevator's here.
Yeah.
It's still.
It's not in front of the door,
It's
though.
not in front of
for
the door, and it takes up a really small. Yeah, build a new bridge, $40 million.
But no.
I'm sorry.
I guess what I would challenge you to do is to come back and tell me, to get rid of, if it's possible, to ask for the waiver of the handicapped accessibility on both sides, and then see what they can do to lessen the footprint of what is there, because it's a possibility in conjunction with the crossing
The
guards.
elevator doesn't, taking away the elevator, you still have all the same constraints you do
It
today.
opens up a large
It
portion
opens up
of
a
space.
No, it doesn't.
You have a
It
place to
doesn't.
go.
Not critical
Doesn't.
space, it doesn't.
I'm happy to draw a diagram, but I assure you it doesn't.
Let's, since she's been behind me, I've been saying, why don't
Thank
go?
you. I have a couple of questions. I just moved to the area 6 months ago, so I am really getting up to speed with all of this. And I want to know who has control over taking the bridge down now or delaying it? Is that the community board, or is that out of our control already?
We have no control. Community board is only influence, there is no power. EDC is actually the one that controls, no, it's not who, is it state?
The state owns the bridge.
Right.
The city through EDC is acting on the state's behalf in removing the bridge.
Okay.
With federal and state dollars.
Okay, my concern is that we have an awful lot of questions that have not been answered in this meeting, and it seems like there were questions before that hadn't been answered, yet a removal of the bridge started taking place. Is there a way to pause it until we have some of these questions answered? In particular, a safe way of crossing at Albany and really pursuing that. And I can tell this committee's worked really hard. I can see their frustration and I understand it. I get it. But I feel like we're, and it's not obviously it's not the committee's choice, but it feels like we're rushing this removal without getting some or all of the questions answered that we really need to feel comfortable as a community. And I think it would probably tamp down a lot of the emotions here if we felt like some of those questions were being answered before the bridge was removed. So I don't know if that's a possibility. And I went under 2 minutes, so I just wanted to acknowledge
It's a state DOT decision, and I don't know that they were invited tonight.
So are you telling me it's fait accompli? Or we can put a stall?
Betty, I have an answer on, if it's helpful, on the lifespan. Okay. Sorry, I know Mark had brought this up before.
Could I just have an
Yeah,
answer
sure.
to my question? Is there a way to pause for a moment for the removal while we get some more answers?
I can't speak for the state, I don't know.
The governor.
What can the community board do?
That could be a resolution.
Councilmember Chin started his office.
Could that be a-
Would you reopen the bridge until such a time?
We have no authority to open the bridge.
Could that be added to the
That-
resolution?
That's why the statement that Councilmember has contacted.
Right, we've been in contact with the governor's office on
I've
this.
been telling you also to contact your state elected.
Margaret Chin's statement could be added to the resolution.
State DOT has indicated that they will not be changing the demolition schedule, so I assume that the governor hasn't spoken to them.
And what is the schedule?
The schedule is within a matter of days.
I want to remind, in November, if you go back to the minutes, Mr. Patel, who was here from the state DOT, said they are very, very anxious to restart their maintenance work. It is long overdue, they are very nervous, and he said at that time, they will not postpone, no matter what the community board, they're not going to.
They said
So
that about the
also they
L
were
train
urgent.
also, Betty. They said that about the L train until somebody got the governor on
Right,
it.
but nevertheless, but people are asking what DOT is saying. I'm reiterating what
Sure,
DOT
sure.
said.
Can we
You can
attach,
believe it or not believe it.
can
I'm
we
just telling
attach
you what
Margaret Chin's, like, for what, the statement to the resolution, like that maybe, or see how everybody else feels, whether we, if we support that, like her, you know, as part of, you know, the whereas of.
It's on file.
I was gonna say, it's on
We already have that on file. It has been absolutely attached because Margaret's letters and
Okay.
statements are part of the official record that we have in the CD.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And I want to.
But it should be part of the whereas.
Give the floor to Nick Spardone from the Battery Park City Authority, because he had something he wanted to.
Thank you, Betty. Just as a point of clarification, I know Mark had brought it up before, and I checked my notes. I thought I brought it up last time. I may have or may have not, but I checked through my notes about the question about the usable lifespan of the bridge. So Tammy had mentioned it a couple of times. For those of you who may not be aware, who are new to the issue or new to the neighborhood, Rector Street Bridge used to have two tubes that crossed, two spans that crossed West Street. In 2007, the southernmost span had to come down because State DOT was realigning Route 9A to straighten it out. And one of the supports for the southern tube was blocking, obviously, the new path of the roadbed, so that had to be removed, and the southern tune was removed. At the request of the community, BPCA worked with DOT to maintain the still existing span that spans West Street, making some, at the time, and is still for today, temporary repairs to extend the useful life of the bridge until such time that a permanent crossing, i.e. the West Thames Pedestrian Street Bridge, was completed. In 2007, when those temporary repairs were made, the lifespan of the bridge was estimated to be 5 years. Up to 10 years if necessary. That brings us to 2017. It's January 2020.
So is there possible structural damage now?
I'm not an engineer. I don't even want to touch that. I know that the bridge has been a great amenity for a long time. It is beyond its useful life.
That would be a deciding thing how I would feel.
It is beyond its useful life as estimated in 2007 to last up to 10 years if necessary, because the fixes were of a temporary nature to what was a temporary structure.
Yes, and I just want to reiterate, if you go back to the notes from November when everyone spoke, the city said they have no funding for maintenance. Battery Park City Authority said they have no plan to do maintenance on the bridge. Who else was there at the time?
I don't
Anyway,
think
so there, no entity is funding the potential future. So that would be an uphill battle that would need to be met for any continuation. So just, on your to-do list.
Just making a quick point about funding, I also live in the neighborhood. It's my understanding that Battery Park City gives the city approximately $200 million. 300 million, sorry, a year. How do we not have money?
Right.
How do we not have money? Everyone's saying this person doesn't have, this entity, it's the ping pong. I know you're working on passing it,
But he still can do all this, yeah.
Right, why, where's all the money going? It's not servicing the community. So
Nick,
that's just-
do you want me to speak or do you want to speak?
Sure.
In open meetings, because those who go to community meetings in Battery Park City, since I also live there, BJ Jones, the CEO, has very clearly stated that agreement of excess funds goes back 50 some odd years when it initially started. That is why Battery Park City exists. So when you say we don't have money, there is an agreement. And hence he brought it up again, BJ Jones, when talking about resiliency projects, having to make deals to float bond issues to pay for that, because they must maintain at a minimum a $200 million float. That's an expense. Take that as a given. So don't take that as flexible and people can spend it on themselves if they choose to. BJ Jones would love to have that. He does not have that authority to do that. You have to go to the mayor and governor to agree, because that agreement goes way back to the beginning of Battery Park City Authority.
There's also going to be a meeting tomorrow talking about some of these expenditures at our Battery Park City Committee meeting, I believe.
February is the real one. Well,
Yeah,
February
real
is
one, but
more
there's two. So
fulsome.
people who are here and want to know about stuff like that in Battery Park City, 2 meetings, look it up on the website.
Right, so to inform people on the committee who are not Battery Park City, it is financially just a very different entity than other communities are. Yes, Dora?
Well, having been at the November, I really am amazed that you were able to get this tremendous, wonderful crowd. Had we been in an auditorium, you would have had more. Was it 2,500 people that signed that petition, Bob?
Okay, 2750.
Okay. So
Or 2950, sorry.
We know what the community wants. Now the question is, how do you change from what this whereas and we tear it down to move into a forward way to support the community? It's very hard to change one's mind. And the first thing is to see the mistakes in the thinking. West Thames Bridge may have been a mistake in the first place. The money could have gone into changing Rector Street Bridge. If you stand where the West Thames Bridge is, nobody is using it, or very few people. I can't say no, very few people. It's a difficult bridge to use. Now, we have $10 million that's going to take down the bridge. How about we use the $10 million to at least give us some more years so that we can use it? 17 years without anything? Well, how about 10 million to at least allow us more time to address the future?
We do have to consider the safety concerns, though, with Metropolitan College. Whatever solution that whatever solution that's found needs to address the needs of, needs to stay within those constraints.
Right. I also want to say, reminding also from the November meeting, that $4 million is not flexible budget money. It is very allocated simply for the removal. It can't be moved. So for people thinking that, I just want to disabuse you of that because we've had that said. That's not my decision, that's not my belief. I'm just passing on what has been said by people who know how budgets work in this particular agreement.
Well, we have
Okay?
to keep
So
questioning
realize.
though. We have to keep fighting.
Right, but they answered that. So you're looking for new money, and we're gonna move on because we need to get this done. Yes. Down.
Hi. So, if the issue, my name's David, I've lived here for about 8 years in Battery Park City. If the issue is the state then, and this body is more or less powerless, I just called Governor Cuomo's office. Obviously, it's closed right now, but there's 3 methods of contacting his office if you call it. You can leave a message, you can fax, or you can contact him through the website. If anybody would like the number, I'll read it off to you. It's 518 474 8390.
Say it again, please.
Yes, 518 474 8390. Now, as far as the city goes, I don't know what the input is from there, but how would we contact the mayor's office to our, which is known, to our elected official?
Your elected official?
Yes.
Sure, if you go to the mayor's website, it has similar contact information. If you're asking, how can we convey this to City Hall? You have. I'm not an elected official. I would encourage you to go through a similar process that you just did with the governor.
Number 2, as far as, I don't know who the state rep is. I'm not, unfortunately, that politically involved. But I will be in the future. And I gotta say, as far as criticisms of this body right now, I don't like what I heard about, like, well, this has been going on, you people just ignored the problem. I feel that's unfair. The moment the notice went up, people were here. Notices have to go up. If you want to build a bar up the street, you have to put a notice on the door that there's going to be a bar up the street. When the sign went up on Rector that they were knocking it down, you got nearly, 3,000 signatures.
Was there a sign on the community garden and the basketball court
Yep.
that wouldn't be restored regarding the non-restoration of the community garden and basketball court? Where are those people?
It's not non-restoration of that, what do you mean?
If the bridge stays, then the
It's on the
basketball
new
courts and the community garden don't
It
get
will remain
restored.
as is.
Yeah, fine.
Which is not restored. No, actually it's not.
The basketball court will be a full court instead of a half court?
No.
No, I'm saying placing the bridge took open space. Making that taking permanent requires state parkland alienation legislation.
No, but you're speaking about people who use the basketball court. If it's going to be a half court anyway, I think that they're net.
I'm just asking, was there notification for the people who are assuming that they will have a restored basketball court in the
Wait, I'll say, excuse me, everyone. He's trying to give you an idea of a to-do list you have for those who want to move forward. I'd prefer that you do not shoot the messenger.
I think though he was undermining the gentleman's point about how we were not informed about this going on, and once the notice came up, you obviously have this turnout. So I think it was more undermining the point that was being made.
I'm saying that the community was selectively informed.
Selectively.
Okay, wait, we're gonna move, no, we've had enough going back and forth. We're gonna move on to a new person appoint.
Point of information, sir. The community board is not powerless. I hate when people say that. Our resolutions don't have the force of legislation, but once we pass the resolution, then the plan is to get elected officials to help, members of the public to help, solicit the press to see if they'll write an article about it, and use all those components to try and get something done. And as per the city charter, government agencies cannot be arbitrary and capricious in ignoring our resolutions as well. So we're not powerless.
All right, thank you.
But we are advisory.
Exactly.
Okay, so yes, there's no direct. The woman sitting by the door, 'cause
Yes, hi, my name is Michelle. I've been a resident of Battery Park City for 23 years.
I'm concerned about my own personal safety, and that's what brought me to this meeting. I mean, I do use Director Bridge. I love that bridge like we all do. I agree with everything that everybody here has said. But I will not use the other bridge because I don't feel it's safe. And the reason I don't feel it's safe is because of what that gentleman said, I don't know your name, about how you access that West Thames Bridge on both sides. I don't want to walk through that isolated garage. I don't want to walk on the streets where there's not a soul out there. I'm a single woman. I come home 11:30 at night, not 3 in the morning. I won't use the bridge. I would much rather take my chances and cross over the streets, which I do, and which I have fallen on and almost lost my life. So, you know, it is a safety issue. Where's my safety? Who's worrying about my safety? I'm sorry that it's a fire hazard. I'm sorry that these poor decisions were made that we're now at this point. But how am I getting back and forth? As it is, my friends don't want to come visit me because we're in the middle of nowhere, right? We're downtown. It's a very isolated place.
What about all
But when
these-
I get off the subway and I walk, where am I even going to walk from the subway?
Would you feel safe walking on Albany Street with crosswalks?
I would feel safe on that bridge if we have guards there all night long. That's how I would feel safe.
Albany
No,
Street.
but I don't want to walk on the street. You understand? I fell on the street. I tripped on something. I'm speaking. You've spoken all night. I've been standing here for 2 hours and haven't said a word. I'm concerned about my personal safety. I can't make it any more concrete than that. So if we get rid of the bridge, what are you going to do for my personal safety? When I say me, I speak for every other woman who's crossing over there late at night, and probably men too. There's been an increase in homeless people and people who are not in their right minds in the area, to the point where I don't even feel comfortable on the promenade anymore, which I used to feel safe on. So there is an issue of personal safety crossing that bridge. Maybe they need to change the access point so that the stairs are facing out rather than an isolated, because you walk down the bridge. I will not go on that elevator because someone could conceivably get in there with me. There's not a soul there. It's completely isolated. I'm looking back over my shoulders. Is anybody there? And I'm not a paranoid person. I'm just a woman who's concerned about my safety. So I'm putting that out there, that whatever anybody else's safety concerns are, I have my own personal safety in mind.
Yeah, my name's David. I've lived here over 20 years as well, and I've been to a number of these meetings. And it's the first time I've seen the community board even recognize that we're here. You know, people have gotten up and spoken for 2 minutes, and then we sit down and the community board gets on with whatever business they are. So I hope that if you consider all of these considerations and at least acknowledge that the community feels that our safety and our quality of life is at stake, and in spite of that, you choose to demolish the bridge, or at least acknowledge that the community is interested, because I haven't seen any of this in any of the board documents or heard it at any of the board meetings.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry you haven't heard you acknowledge, but
all I hear is about these things in the whereas, but I haven't heard anything about the fact that, well, the community has some feelings about it, and you choose to, there's pluses and minuses. You're choosing one way or another, but at least acknowledge that it's going to hurt the quality of life and safety of your life.
Okay. Ian?
Yeah, my name is Donnie, been a resident of Better Park City for about more than 20 years. So that's all I'm super glad. So they walk through. So I'm here, bottom line is the bridge needs to stay and should be reopened now, right? And I hope that the board and Councilmember Chin will do what they can to the mayor's office through EPC. Instead of interested in just spending the money to take it down, just suspend the project, reopen it for safety of the people right now. I think the key points already made, why safe, why it's not, why the other bridge doesn't work, and I'm not going to repeat that. But I do take exception that members of this committee is making to say that many of us who are here are not interested in the safety of others. That's just complete nonsense. All right, it's not right. All right, you don't know what I think about the other people. Maybe I care more about them than you do. Right? It is the cities and government's responsibility to make sure that everyone is safe. But you say that because we argue for something that is worked for 17 years, that make us narrow-minded, that's wrong. That is really wrong. And I was a former Committee Board 2 member. And I have, this one meeting, I feel so unwelcome. So unwelcome. To be lectured on that I need to do more, should not be a one issue. Well, many of us don't have the privilege to have all the time to come to these meetings every day. It is important enough to us to be here. I hope you listen. It is not just the residents. It's the visitors of the residents, of the people who want to visit the promenade. All of those individuals deserve access, safe access. Maybe they should be part of the Vision Zero as mentioned earlier, right? And think about the weather. The other day when it was so cold, walking through that garage with all the cars coming in and out, frozen street, no one looking at it. I called 311 to make sure they get the black guys off the street. Can you imagine all the people who are walking across the street now? Even with the people who are there to help monitor the traffic, right? Last day, just reopen it now, immediately, for the kids, also for the students. Some people said there's some conspiracy theory that maybe closing these bridges prevent other people from visiting Battery Park City, right? So, I don't want to go there, but I mean, I said enough, just keep it open, it's for the safety. We care about our safety and that of everyone. And it's just, I hope that the community board will listen. I hope Councilmember Chen take immediate action to call the governor's office and the mayor to say EDC, to suspend this thing, open it up, because it's cold, it's raining, it's winter, it's snowing. Make sure people have a safe way to go home. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
The statement we have already, Councilmember Chin has already called, so we need your call, and thank you for looking up for that phone number, the 518 number.
Right, call them to suspend the closing. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, Mitch, 1 second, she's been waiting for quite a while. Let her finish.
So I agree with what everyone has said about the bridge, safety, convenience, all those things. I think it would be a shame for it to be taken down before we resolve these issues. So I'm just going to hone in on one little thing for clarity. 60 Rector was open and functioning when they put the footbridge up. There was no door by the stairs.
Right.
When Metropolitan College of New York wanted to move in, they relocated a door to that side of the building, knowing those stairs were there for who knows how long. I cannot believe that the building approved it with, the bridge is temporary, it's coming down. That the fire department approved it with, the bridge is temporary, it's coming down. They either approve it or they don't approve it. I do this all day. The fire department doesn't have like gray soft lines. It's either you've met the fire department requirements or you have not. So in order for them to get their certificate of occupancy, they had to get approval from both the Department of Buildings and the fire department before they could get the certificate of occupancy to run that business. So the businesses that were in that building before all entered and exited from Rector Street, and it was not an issue with the stairs of the bridge. I just want to be clear that has created itself since the bridge went up. It's not a factor of the bridge being there or not. The bridge was there before this issue became an issue. That issue has been created since then. And I do want to thank the community board for everything that you do. I apologize if my passion came off as being short and rude. That was not my intention. And we appreciate what you do.
Fine, thank you. Back to the committee. Mitch.
I have a question, Betty, for clarification for me on the therefore be it resolved. Because basically the Transportation Committee is a relatively new committee, and when it was Geographic Committees, I live on this side of Tribeca, so I really had nothing to do with the history of this thing. CB1 reaffirms its long-standing position that the Rector Street pedestrian bridge should be demolished as planned. Was that for the people that were involved in this going back 5-10 years, was that the long-standing position of the board?
Yes, over the last 6 resolutions since 2001.
It was also, the community board fought long and hard because the initial plan by state DOT actually was to take that bridge down.
Right.
Long before West Thames was put up. And in fact, the community board fought vociferously to ensure that that didn't happen, because that would have left southern Battery Park City with no form of crossing, because at that point the Liberty Bridge had not been reopened, the underpass, etc. So once the underpass and the Liberty Bridge opened, the thought process had come, and it took a little bit of a while to get state DOT to affirm that they would not take Rector down until the other bridges were ready.
But the board was in favor, like I said, I wasn't part of that then, so you guys were...
It was on record because there were always 2 passageways, now there are 3 passageways, and so the conversation was that Rector was temporary and redundant, so yes. That's historical, that's not personal opinion today. As I said, I've been on record saying if I had my option, I'd have a bridge at Pier 26, I'd have a bridge at Pier 40, I'd have a bridge at every place that you want to go to cross into HRP and up the east side to make it easier, but that has nothing to do with the temporary nature for what DOT stated for this bridge.
If I may.
Yes, we'll do Justine, Bob, and then you can go next.
What I would say, Tammy, is
move on.
the way that this is written, it's our long-standing position, CB1, that it should be demolished as planned. I don't think we really cared, like you said. I think our long-standing position was give us as many bridges as possible.
No, we said in writing that they could, that
Yes,
this would come
the
down when
understanding
West
was-
End's open.
The understanding was, and because we were told we had no choice, and we always were focused on getting the new bridge. And in 2009, when we still was, I think, in our committee, we were focused on getting the new bridge because we thought that would solve all the problems. Then it came and we realized, oh no, it didn't. And you know, shame on us, shame on me for not realizing where the hell it landed and where it started. And it's not for lack of, I was at most meetings, not all, I was at most of those meetings, shame on me. I had no idea. And I don't understand, I'm not an architect, I don't understand what the pictures do. I really need someone to point and show me. I did not understand how ineffective it would be until maybe 2016 or 2018, and then it was too late to do about that bridge and locations. And there may be, from what everybody is saying and we're hearing, that may have been the best place for that bridge to be located. But what bothers me, and I'm sitting here trying to make notes, it's the tone of the resolution. The tone of the resolution is saying, we agree. Not it's sad that the bridge has to come down, not that we want to find other alternatives, whatever else. I think that from what we're hearing from this community, it almost is a better thing to say. We've got the gardeners, the garden is a big constituency, and they want the bridge to come down because they want the more space that's promised them with the bridge coming down. Then we've had all these people, myself included, who want the Rector Street Bridge to stay. We want to come up with different ways to keep it in place. And in the meantime, I love the suggestion of the crossing guards at Albany Street, because people are using it. But the tone of this is basically
So
saying,
what do you want to eliminate and add to this?
I'm trying to rewrite it, and I'm not even on your committee, so I mean, you can tell me to shut the hell up, which is fair.
No,
But
you can contribute.
the tone of this is anti.
It's not emotionally for.
It's not emotionally for the bridge.
Pro-demolition.
It's pro-demolition, and I think that is the biggest problem that I personally have with this. It's pro-demolition, and I think at the end of the day, our position, from hearing what everybody is saying, needs to present everybody's side. And what the whereas at the very least need to say is what everybody is saying to us, what they've come here to say, ask for more questions, and then at the end of the day, it's not our choice. We can say we'd like to have, as Tammy said, we want as many bridges as you'll give us. Make it happen, and yet.
Are you looking, Justine, to include a whereas that
I do
says, whereas there has been an extraordinary amount of community outpouring for a request. Now again, we do not want to go on record saying, well, we now want to keep the bridge even though we're being told it's unsafe and it's compromised the safety of others. Hold on, that we want safe passage going across.
Yes.
If that can involve some restoration and permanence of the bridge, the community board would be open to it.
I'm okay with that, but I also would add into that to say about getting rid of the ADA accessibility.
I don't want to prescribe anything that does not involve within the proper city law and code. I do not want to be the committee that says, take away the handicapped accessibility, no problem, and then be sued for it.
It's like we're kind of dumped on all the time.
Right, I also
not do
don't
it?
want to be the person who says, keep the bridge, and then there's a minor earthquake and the damn thing falls with people on it, all right, because it wasn't supported or it wasn't this. If the bridge is fundamentally unsafe, then the bridge needs to either be fixed or go away. Let's be honest. Every one of us wants a safe.
Does anyone know that?
Also cite how many were signed that petition?
Almost 3,000, 3,900.
2,700 is what Marcus letter
So
says.
can you please add that, cite that there was a petition asking that the
Yes,
bridge
but I
stay?
suggest
Is at 1,800, I think.
I
when it was
suggest in
written.
those cases, and the reason it was left with that was I looked at some of them visually and the same names appeared over and over again.
Oh, I didn't.
So if we're gonna talk about that, then it has to be, talk about people, it has to be just signatures. And in fact, some of them were people who I spoke to who said, I don't use the bridge, I don't care about the bridge, but people asked me, so I signed it. And I think the reality is, we at least, if you're gonna
Hold
put
on,
it, if you're
and I
worried
do
about.
want, I also want to go on record saying that the community board office has heard from other people who were not comfortable coming today. The district manager did call me and say there are people who have called from buildings on the Battery Park City side and the Rector Street Bridge side, that they are not in favor of keeping the bridge. They were okay if it came down. They were looking for a little, to get rid of the homeless guy who lives underneath the bridge and looking to have better lighting and better facilities in the park. So
Well,
there
and the
is,
gardeners.
They want it to be
and the
pretty.
gardeners. There are people who are in support of. They may not be in this room because quite frankly, if I was one of them and I wasn't a community board member to sit here for 2 hours and be yelled at, I wouldn't do it. Right? So
Well, likewise, the people from the
No.
north aren't gonna be here because they're tired of paying for
they
taxes and they don't
did
care
their
either.
due diligence
They
of
take it
calling the
down.
office to express their opinion.
So Tammy, what about your whereas? That seemed to
I
make
liked
sense.
your whereas, what you said.
Yeah,
I
the
like that,
whereas
that
was good.
changes the tone of it all.
Did you write
It still does not come down, it still,
Why do they even
just
ask?
so
I
you
knew you would.
understand, it still supports the
Sorry.
idea
Right.
that what we're looking for is safety first.
Right,
Yeah.
but what about the
I am not a safety expert.
could we
That
add the
is
pedestrian managers,
DOE, DOT,
Yes.
pedestrian
That's-
managers in there?
That's gonna be, that's a result.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, but thank you, Tammy, thank you for, as usual, bringing into words very well what I'm trying to say.
And by the way, just to let you know, there are other reasons, other arguments that I have heard for why this bridge should go down, including that the safety officer,
and also
the safety guard
I'm gonna talk to you
at
about
Manhattan
where
College, who basically said to me
I'm
about
good with
that
99% of
accumulation of trash by the bridge, it's an eyesore, that people in wheelchairs cannot pass by because the street's too narrow, that people who have baby strollers cannot pass by because the streets are too narrow. So there are other arguments in support of demolishing the bridge. Like I said, safety first, that's the most important, but
We're not here
there
to
are other people.
We're not here to discount any opinions on either side. What we're here to do is take this at this point, include the wording, and move forward. Because it's 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we gotta move.
I walked out because I don't know about anybody in here who has kids, but I got kids, so I had to get home. Buy a lovely car because they're waiting for me.
I think
So-
Bob has the last word, you said you'd get back
And then
to
we
him.
need to do a vote. We need
Yes,
to, we need to discuss the wording, take a vote,
Okay.
and then move on.
Although some of the final wording may have to be actually done after. People wanna see it.
We
You can hear it.
we
You can, it's just a
we
couple
can
of words, you
wordsmith
can say
most of it right
it,
now.
that'll be, I think, sufficient. Because it was just the timbre of the thing that changed.
Yeah, no, that's fine, and when it goes, again, this meeting is recorded, so I can go back to the recording to catch the wording as well. So if different people speak the wording, such as Tammy volunteers it for something, I can get that later. So that's not a problem. Okay, Bob? And then we're done, we're gonna vote.
I just wanted to add a couple of points I'm sensitive to. Firstly, I visited the engine 10, or the house 10 of the New York Fire Department, and I spoke to the people who actually take care of that part of the city, and they've never had any problems with the college, and they said that if there was anything dangerous, the fire department wouldn't allow it, period. There's no, they just, if there was any danger that there would be thousands of people lost, the fire department wouldn't allow that thing to happen. And they do certificates of occupancy to make sure that it's safe every time. The next thing is that if the people here had the choice between, all things being equal, destroying the bridge at West Thames or keeping the one at Rector, I think most people would agree that we don't need the one at West Thames.
But that's not a choice. That's not a choice. Let's not
But I'm
go
talking
there.
about the attitude that people have about this. The next thing is that it is possible for the community board to form a task force for the Rector Bridge because the community is asking to at least take a look at it in terms of trying to solve problems. And so we're New Yorkers, our job in life in the whole world is to solve problems. So we really should look at it like that. Even if you have someone standing out in the middle of the street, a real problem that I almost get killed by is the Greenway. The Greenway now has faster and faster scooters and bikes on it.
Can we stick to this topic,
It's much more
though?
dangerous now. Well, you always interrupt me, Betty, and you even injured
Bob?
me once.
Bob,
What?
let's keep it in decorum. We want to move forward. Is there anything new that you want to add?
Yes.
Please continue.
The final
only.
statement I wanted to make is all of us are responsible for anything that happens because we take down the bridge. And I've felt since the beginning of this, if anyone gets killed or injured at Albany after the takedown of the bridge, we're all responsible, and we really should think about that. You could say I shouldn't take it personally, and I shouldn't extend my feeling to that, but I'm very sensitive to the safety and well-being of the community, and I wouldn't be doing this
Bob,
if I
people have
didn't
been
care
killed
about it
at
a
that
lot.
intersection and bicyclists already, even with the bridge.
And finally, I started with a community resolution in 2014, and I tried to sell it for all that time. Nobody in the community board was willing to hear it. So this idea of saving the bridge isn't a new idea, isn't the first time that this has been brought up in this community. It's just that it's the first time that the iceberg actually is out in the air and people can see it. For the first time, people can see what the community really thinks, not kind of sitting in committee rooms and thinking that they know what the community thinks. The community lives in the present, acts in the present, and cares about the present and the future. We don't really understand the past very well. So all we can do is talk about what we need now and what we need going forward for our health and well-being.
Let's finalize the wording and get a vote.
Okay,
Because there
so
a couple of changes.
I'm
You're
gonna
doing
help.
a whereas?
I'm gonna help you in the second whereas. We're gonna add in about the petition that Margaret Chin's office has received with an approximate, according to her.
It's the first whereas, hasn't it?
Well, that number has to change because so the first whereas changes to about 2,700.
2950.
I have to go, Bob, with what Margaret's last paperwork
Okay.
says that's received.
Okay, that's fine.
Whatever's official from the office based on her literature, okay? In the therefore be it resolved, we are saying that we want pedestrian we want DOT to work with BPCA and state DOT and retail and corporate partners, however we want to put that, to fund pedestrian managers at Albany and West Street, period. We don't want a study, that's what we want. We just want them there, right? Everybody agreed on that?
You want them at all intersections?
At Albany and West,
Oh, Albany West, okay.
which is the most highly affected one because you've got a bridge already at West Ames and you've got a bridge at Liberty. We want a traffic study from DOT for Rector and West Street, as well as to review the pedestrian traffic at Albany and West, now that the bridge is not going to be there. All right. What else did we say? I thought, what else?
The street improvements, there was,
So I think we also wanted to ensure that the West Thames Bridge was fully operational. It is not fully operational because the permanent stairs have not been fully opened. Nick, is that correct?
No, they have.
As of, they're fully open now. Yeah, they don't.
I was there Friday. Is it since Friday?
Yes, yeah. So the new permanent stairs open onto the 50 West Plaza and not the street on the other side.
Yeah, you actually don't walk through the garage.
So you don't walk through the garage. It is now functionally open.
Correct.
And puts you into the pedestrian plaza.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yesterday, while I I was walking there, they were working on those stairs, and those stairs were closed in the middle of the day when I was going to pick up kids from 276. So you couldn't actually use those stairs, and you couldn't use the Rector Street Bridge to get, you had to
So
cross.
that's exactly what I wanted to check, and they are still tweaking the final touches on the step side. They have not fully converted over to the new steps, is what she's saying.
The temporary stairs are down and the permanent stairs are open. The permanent stairs are not 100% finished. They're putting on like netting and whatnot.
But that's what we're saying. It's not if
Closing the bridge to do that.
Stop! I can articulate
No.
myself, guys. I can answer his question.
The bridge will not be closed again. The temporary stairs on the east side have been removed. The permanent stairs are open and will remain open. And there's finishing work that still needs to be done.
So in the process of finishing the work, is it anticipated that that bridge will be shut at any point?
No.
And the city and the state can guarantee that.
To the best of my knowledge today, right now.
So for that, we will put that in here to ensure that the Rector Street Bridge is not taken down until it is 100% complete, that the West Thames Bridge is fully operational 24/7.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's up to us, not to him, yeah.
But just so we have it, it's fully operational 24/7 now. It's open. I walked over it twice today. The new set of stairs.
Yesterday it was closed, she said.
Yesterday it was closed.
I walked over it yesterday too. Probably
That's what
depends
I'm
on what
saying.
time. Probably depends on what time.
Right, so that's what we're saying, that there could be
With
some.
all final pieces in place.
What about like the Liberty Street Bridge, 200 Liberty, that's being renovated and it's
You can access that bridge. There's an entrance on South End Avenue, a handicapped entrance that you can access the Liberty Street Bridge. I take it daily. Okay?
Yeah, I would even go further and say that, the Rector Street Bridge should not be taken down until the state DOT can provide crossing guards at Albany. I just feel uncomfortable with that, and I don't know if everyone's going to.
Crossing guards, pedestrian managers.
Whatever, pedestrian, whatever.
I'm okay with that. That's a good commitment.
But then the last therefore be resolved is moot.
Well, no, hang on. We're not there. Mark, you're close, but not the cigar point yet. Only with Pollyanna's.
If you have a cigar, I'll take.
I might take a scotch instead. All right.
Both?
So, with those notes, in the therefore be it resolved, it becomes CB1 supports its longstanding position that the Rector Street pedestrian bridge would be demolished as planned, only with the following provisos. Thank you. I need a wordsmith back here. And after the West Thames Bridge is completely finished with all final pieces in place and open 24/7. And what that means is we have pedestrian managers, period, on Albany Street. It means that traffic studies are agreed to. It means that all the work is open and you have functional bridges and you have a functional safety plan in place for the at-grade crossing at Albany and studies to be done for the at-grade crossing as well as the Rector Street side for the people who have concerns over there. And if they cannot manage that, then the Rector Street Bridge clearly does not come down because those are our conditions.
Contingent on.
All right. So if you're, Benny, are you okay with all of that? It says that we, this is our position, the bridge is still coming down as soon as we get all this stuff done, which addresses safety, which is the primary concern for the people that we need to protect.
Which means we don't support it coming down in the next few days.
Unless they can get this done.
Right.
Until.
There's no way they're getting that done in a few days.
I don't know. It's like they said, anything can happen. All right? This is a committee-only vote.
Okay.
There are no questions from the public at this point. Everybody has had a comment. Everybody has had something to say. Right? Betty has recognized everybody in the room who's had a hand up at least once.
So for where you said the bridge be finished,
CB1
you should say 100% accessible instead of finished. And all these are contingent on.
Yeah, I think
All right.
finished is better wording, because then if like a step doesn't have something on it, then.
Yeah, no, I'm talking 100% finished. So like all the railings are in, everything. There's no, let's just put some netting up and take half the staircase down. Everything's done. Okay.
Cora, did you want to speak for the office?
Cora.
Okay, interesting question, but
No.
not, it's not the bridge.
We're beyond. we're being.
Did you want to speak from Margaret Chin's office?
I'm speaking on behalf of a constituent who is legally blind. He cannot be here, but he gave us a suggestion about the APS, the Accessibility Pedestrian Signal. So although this is, I didn't speak earlier because this is about intersection at Albany and South End Avenue.
Okay, so hold it, just,
that's a different issue.
No, I'm
just
not
hold
bringing-
it,
I
hold
want you to know this is related to the bridge because the bridge is coming down. He feels that it is what it is, but for him it's a big challenge. And now he has to find ways to cross the West Street so he can go to work on Broadway. So I just want this to be here for the record that he came up with a suggestion about the APS. So if there's any traffic light signals, anything that's going to be
any changes at
please.
Albany Street would include that.
But if there's anything that would come up that going to be
There
installed
is a
at
resolution.
West Street,
There
please consider the APS system to help the
Cora,
physically.
I think we have a resolution on board in one of the committees that we did when we asked DOT to take a look and change all the traffic lights from Chambers to Albany, anywhere where there were at-grade crossings. We did talk about accessibility and the blind as well, and to have hearing impaired, because that was Ann's point.
Yeah.
So
for the
that is,
blind.
okay,
So
so that,
accessibility pedestrian signals is to help the people.
Well, I know that, I just don't know.
okay, so back to the reso,
Don't
all right?
Don't cross.
It's 8:15, back to the reso. I think we've gotten all the notes, Betty, yes? Diana? Got
Oh,
one?
yes, we have the tape.
So there you go, hit it. Call the question.
Call for question, this is just committee members.
All in favor of the resolution as now changed?
Is that 1, 2, 3, 4? 4, that's 4 in favor?
Oh, five.
5. Opposed? 2 opposed? Abstaining?
1.
Recused?
None.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay. We would appreciate if we can get this, Diana, as quickly as possible to both the mayor's office, the governor's office, and everyone involved to hopefully, Councilmember Chin's office, please feel free to reach out to State DOT to see if they could put a break on the next few days' conversation to have them be able to respond to the community board to provide safety measures in sight before demolition.
Councilmember Chin has been taking the lead on this, and again, this is on a state issue. So we have been encouraging you guys to call your state elected. We will also encourage, Councilmember will also reach out to the state electors at the state level.
They can do it.
So
Chin's
call the
office can do
state.
On a drive.
I gave you a business card, please drop me an email, we'll exchange phone numbers, contact, I'll let you know.
Okay.
What's that saying? We have a committee advisory vote. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the Broadway corridor. I implore you, if you have safety concerns and you are on Broadway and you ride a bike and you are concerned, please stay for the next 10 minutes because we're talking about the Broadway. If not, please exit quietly because we do need to pass a resolution.
See you later, okay.
I'd
All right?
just like to say everybody came, thank you for coming, because it made a difference. I think you can, even though you can get everything you wanted to over,
Diana has my notes.
Thank you to the community board for putting up with us.
It's a little chicken scratchy, but I could type them up in the morning and send them out for you. So it's, yeah, that's wood, and then these are the 4. That's real different. You know, one, it's 100% finished, and then it's not until the pedestrian manager.
Well, you'll find out quickly what it is.
I would like to add the word piffle. I can resolution.
Right.
I can, piffle doesn't make that.
You said it 3 times.
Good job, Tim.
What happened? I still didn't like the tone.
You know, the thing is, I'm afraid if we don't have to work on the changes, then getting nothing, it's like one of those like things like that. You know, it's like the compromise with the licensing committee. The only thing I'd like to know is, I would like to see if we can add the.
Betty, which are we moving on to? The Broadway bike lane? You saw bring that up?
Let me get your attention first.
So what is your position with the city?
They want me to look.
Tammy, come back.
I'm coming. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you, Doug.
At least you have knowledge
Okay, people, ready to change gears? It's on to Broadway.
Let's do it.
Okay, everybody have your resolution? Because that might jog your memory as to what you want to comment on, change, whatever.
Is this for the bike lane?
Yes.
I have it.
I would like to get.
Oh, is there?
I would like to see, I read it earlier,
Oh,
the
okay.
enforcement tying with this.
Okay, yes, Tim.
So for me, the one of the things that, and the therefore be it resolved that we talked about, and I can't actually get over it, is to ask that NYPD and DOT work on enforcement for that intersection at the end of where it becomes into the shared street. So where they have presented the shared street proposal. So to make sure, because that intersection is pretty ripe, and actually throughout, to try and make sure that there are, if a car's taking the wrong turn, they get ticketed. If a bicyclist doesn't stop at where they're supposed to, that they're warned. It just needs to be that everybody plays together nicely in the pool, and that,
Like not going on the sidewalk.
yeah, and make sure the electric bikes don't try and go around on the sidewalks and all the rest of that stuff. So it really is about enforcement for this shared street.
Well, it's new, I assume you're saying.
Betty, I was like.
Because there is no enforcement down there, I was gonna.
Yeah, no,
I was reading, you know, like, I was thinking about, since last month, a lot about on all sides, and I was reading like some op-eds from extremes from the Post to the News to the Times and different things, just to see different things, and, you know, it would be like, this week, I was reading something in the paper that they're going to be now, behavior modification hasn't worked on the placards. I'm just making an analogy, I'm not bringing the placards. So they're going to have a crackdown on that, at least for now. You know, like at least, like that's what it said in the paper, where they're going to try to do some enforcement.
There was
We
some
live in
legislation.
a culture where everybody knows the rules. The behavior hasn't been modified from cars not slowing down when they're making turns to an e-bike going on the sidewalk, you know, to make a delivery at 11 o'clock at night, you know, when people are coming home late or whatever. So I really feel, and I would like to see how some of the other members feel, second Tammy's motion to tie enforcement into this, because that's the, and I read some articles from bike enthusiasts talking about like the, you know, not against bikes, but just for the behavior modification, it's not happening in our culture. And, you know, so I would just, you know, if everybody else is okay with that, I would like to support, you know, that.
Yeah, I agree. They think they have the right of way, even in a bike lane.
And it's not just that.
They
it's like,
never have the right of way. Pedestrian has the right of way.
Cars, you know, like not slowing down, making a turn, that's the most dangerous thing for bicyclists and pedestrians. So I'm not just focusing on bicyclists, but just enforcement all the way around, so it's safe for everybody. And that's the only way behavior modification, in my opinion, in the culture that we live in, is going to happen. Because we're not Singapore and we're not Japan.
I nearly get hit by a bicycle once a day, at least. A car, almost never.
But, you know,
Oh, multiple times a day for me, so it's just a matter of where you are on that.
the cyclists, as much as I, support cycling, the cyclists are out of control. They don't stop at red lights, they go through crosswalk, I mean, it drives me crazy. But I'm pretty sure that NYPD was here a couple months ago, and, you know, the community officers basically told us that they're not interested in enforcement of bicycles, because it's not worth their while, right? Like, they're not gonna go running after a bicyclist.
Yeah, they don't
And
get
I
enforced.
forget what
Yeah.
the reason was, but.
They gave a couple of reasons why it's not feasible and why it's just.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about,
worth
not
But we also
bicycles,
asked
but
for a
the
traffic control measure
electric.
specifically for the intersection where the bull is currently situated. I know the bull will be moving at some point, hopefully before forever, but it's still there now, and I can only comment on what I see now.
It's not gonna.
So, I mean, before, that intersection, it was supposed to have four-way crosswalks, and the shared bike lane comes in. That's actually a different, that is the slide that was showed from the bike path, that I don't think that was the slide showed when they presented it as a pedestrian walkway, which was
Correct.
different in the upside.
It was gray in the original one, the shared street one.
In the shared street plan that they presented in August, the bike lane wasn't there at all, and there
That was gray.
and it was an additional pedestrian crossings on that map.
No, actually there wasn't.
So what I want to do
See, the problem with that is the bicyclists are gonna think the 5 miles an hour are for the pedestrians, not for them.
So what's the
But
yellow?
either
I'm
way,
serious.
the yellow becomes shared street. So they changed the texture of the road surface, and you can be a car, a bicycle, or a pedestrian and just walk in the middle.
But cars can be there.
And cars are there. So I would love to see a traffic control measure.
Such as?
Well, if pedestrians have a crosswalk, right, and they have to stop, then a bicyclist should have to stop at that intersection as well, just to be able to provide some traffic calming. I don't know.
Well, they have, I mean, the
That's like the
crosswalk is going to be crossed by, whoever crosses it is going to be crossing it.
Well, can we just put some language to tie in the enforcement, not specifically, attacking bicyclists, but just enforcement for everything?
The enforcement was a separate issue, and
Maybe
that's already
Martha
been
County
done.
will come
I'm
up with
talking
language.
traffic calming, so
Yeah,
like
she's
a
a
traffic
transition.
light for
Okay.
the bicyclists.
Okay.
So it is very clear that the bicyclists will have to stop.
But there needs to be enforcement, Tammy.
Understood, but there's also an issue that we have right now. There are certain places that a bicyclist follows pedestrian rules.
Okay.
And there are other places that bicyclists are supposed to follow vehicular signals.
Okay.
So we need to be on the side of getting clarification for that for Broadway, because that could be a real potential problem. You want the bicyclist to have the path, the protected path and the passage, but you don't want it at the cost of running people over.
Let me look, 'cause I think actually New York City clarified that by saying bicyclists go with pedestrians. I think that actually was recent legislation.
Okay, then what about the,
It was. I was gonna say, that's been clarified already. It is new legislation.
But at that particular intersection, which is a well-known tourist area, there needs to be far more signage, far more clarification, far more concerted efforts for traffic control, not calming, traffic control and enforcement. Because because you're not gonna see some of the signs, you're not gonna see many of it. I mean, you've got the double parked trucks that park there, and it's a very dangerous intersection down there. It'll be so much easier for the bicyclists further north, where the pedestrians are so far defined by not crossing in
But
the
there's
middle
no
of the street.
parking.
But they're there.
Well, but this is a new
that could be
configuration.
part
I
of
mean,
the
you have to give
enforcement
some measure.
Betty, you said that the bicycles go with the pedestrians, okay, but.
In the legislation?
No problem, no, I'm not arguing that. The motorized vehicles,
Or bicycles.
the bicycle, the electric bike, the ones that can go 15, 20 miles an hour,
Yes.
they're with the cars, they're with the.
No, they're bicycles.
Okay,
By
well,
New York
I
State
have
law,
a
they're
problem,
bicycles.
so there needs to be,
Yeah.
I have a problem with that. It's not your fault, you don't make the laws, but now that I see the motorized bicyclists, specifically a lot of the delivery people that are going 15, 20 miles an hour up on the sidewalks late at night when nobody's there. I would just like somehow to tie in, maybe you guys can help me with the language, but enforcement, even more for that than, regular bicyclists,
Does anybody want to
Right,
wordsmith that?
but the people who don't follow the law, the point is they don't follow the law.
Okay, so just.
If they're on the sidewalks, they're against the law.
But that doesn't mean that we don't ask for it. You know what I
But
mean?
that we have that been enforced.
Traffic control and enforcement. We
Traffic
just ask
control's a
for it.
little different.
I want both.
You wanna have a
that makes
light and then
sense.
another light right next
It's
to
a
it.
good idea.
I wanna have whatever
For the cars too?
I wanna have better traffic control.
We're not targeting
And I mean,
bicycles.
that could just be signage,
Cars-
It could be
Well, but it is.
signage.
Then I'm okay.
But this is,
Exactly.
this is,
Yeah.
right, this
I
is
don't
what they do.
I don't wanna predicate what they do.
Betty,
I
the
don't,
It is
commi- the committee wants to put that language in there.
I don't wanna tell DOT how to have it, I
Majority-
just wanna have additional traffic control measures. Whether they say, okay, well, we're gonna put more signage, or they say we're gonna put a light, or they say we're gonna put a bicycle stop sign. I don't care what they
With
choose,
enforcement.
but whatever they choose needs to be implemented, more particularly with a focus at that intersection because it's such a high traffic tourist zone versus other areas where
Okay.
it's more
I'm
defined.
trying to clarify for wording's sake, and no,
Okay.
we're not talking about, the other point, about enforcement, because that's a separate point.
No.
That's what I think.
We are-
So I'm not talking about
No,
enforcement
no,
right
it's,
now.
but,
on
hold
purpose.
on, excuse me, Betty. The majority of the people here just said that they support the idea of attaching enforcement with that, because without enforcement, there'll be no behavioral change. And so if the majority of the board feels that way, then how could you say that we can't do it?
I didn't say that, I said, listen to me again.
Okay, good.
I said, I'm not talking enforcement because that's already written down. That's its own resolve. So
Okay, maybe, I apologize if I don't see it.
it
Where-
is a different group of people, it's the NYPD.
On this thing that we're
The
voting
DOT, yes,
on,
we're talking about addition.
I would like to add
In the
enforcement
resolve.
on,
Wait,
on,
yes, and that was already added
where?
as resolve. Well, I can't write on yours.
Oh,
You
okay, I'm
can write
sorry.
on yours.
Betty,
go
I'm
over
sorry,
and
I'm
do
sorry,
it.
now I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so I said, that was already accepted,
Okay.
that, that was brought up, that's written, I wrote it down on
Okay,
mine, I
thank
got
you.
it. Now we're talking about clarifying the other point that was being brought up,
Thank you, I
and that was adding signals.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to clarify, so you're saying this is what DOT is doing and has experience with, and it's working for them in Manhattan. You are saying you want them to do more for Lower Manhattan than they do in other parts of the city because,
At this particular intersection, because of how narrow it is, how much traffic it has, the high tourist impact that it has, there's a farmer's market, half a block away from it on many days. It is a far more intense location than that showed on the right. That intersection is wonderful in the concept and design, but it's not as relevant for what we experience in CB1
Doesn't-
at this
It's
intersection.
not reality.
Yeah, that'll be totally full of people. I'm a cyclist, and I stopped because I'm a rule follower. I have problems. But the
You're a
stop
1
signs
percenter.
on the, was it the West Side Highway bike path are quite useful. It also helps you shame other people for not stopping.
Exactly, and that's really.
Exactly. You're talking about the lights
that
by the
works
pier.
for everyone.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
stop for like wait
So,
for cars.
Tammy, so you just want to say traffic calming devices. Yeah, so then they pick it. TL does do it, that's all you need to say. Yeah. Just make sure she puts that language in there.
Yeah, that's
Is there
versus
is there a specific location being proposed for the traffic control measure?
Yeah, at that intersection.
Right.
like where it
At-
changes, where it changes to be.
That entire, I would actually say that entire section from the top of that crosswalk down to the point of the park.
Well, where would the stop
You're
stop
saying
sign?
anywhere in there or continuous throughout?
I think that, I'm not an expert on where DOT needs to put it, but they need to put it in that zone to address that area. So if it's at that intersection, someplace, that's all that
oh look,
I.
I thought they already had one.
But
I don't know.
For what Mimi's talking about is,
You need one of those little bicycle, like,
no, she's
That's
a
what I was
bicyclist,
saying,
yeah.
bicycle on
bicycle,
off.
red light,
Yeah,
green light.
yeah,
Are you
Where
saying to put it like where the
where
needs
like
to be?
everybody is supposed to stop to allow like
Right, I know they call it
Like
split light, but
intersecting.
yeah.
traffic.
They have them in Central Park.
Whatever that thing is, that's what would be fantastic over there.
Some of the sections they have. Yeah.
I mean, it's just such it's such an impactful little zone with so many people 24/7 with the daylight that I'm happy Shared Street, and you have so many tourists who don't know, but they do know a light. They understand the light.
Well, yeah, and tourists on city bikes and on the rental bikes, like
Right.
sort of.
Well, there's also a sign there that tells the speed limit as they enter the area.
And not to mention, like,
I don't know that they know how fast they're going, to be
not-
totally
no.
honest, like,
Oh, well, that's
Like-
always a problem.
And not to
I mean, that's always
mention
a problem
like
with
if,
everybody.
if,
That's always
if a tourist is on a city bike, they won't know if they're going 5 or 7 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Is this a protected bike lane, like in that there's cars moving, cars parked, and then the bike?
No, there are
There's no
actual
bike.
barriers. There are actual barriers where it is, where it's marked green. When it turns into yellow, it's shared street, so there's no, everybody moves amongst themselves.
And the only
The
other,
cars,
the only other thing that I would do is where we're on our read, I would make it exactly match what they presented here. I know that's like really pedantic of me, but, because this doesn't read to me, that it's on Broadway. And it should, so if you see, it
What's the
says, the title of it is the Broadway Whitehall Street. So I'd love to see that in the titles, just so if somebody's searching, they can find it, because when you search by our resos online for history, it'd be historic.
It should be, and if is there a project document number associated with it yet?
I know there is one somewhere.
If there is, it should always include that in the first whereas. Then it's also much easier to search as well. Let's see if it's in there. If they have it yet. No, it's probably not. It's the there's the PowerPoint.
I can get that from
Yeah,
DOT if
yeah,
it's not in there. I know what you're talking
I mean, we used to do that all the time, but it's always good to have that. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it's some of the
Is that it?
schematics.
We did ask for them to come back, right?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
it's 1 year, yeah.
Yeah. The enforcement and the traffic control, I'd love to see go above the come back in 1 year, so that those things are part of the rollout, not after analysis of the year. You understand what I mean? So, in the rollout, that they include the traffic control, and they include enforcement, and
Yeah, and that's insane. I'm not saying that's after a year. The year is simply they're coming back with feedback on the project.
Okay.
Now it works.
Great.
But those things are part of the project. So as early as they can, because I know they're starting to implement some of it, so obviously they can't do it in the past.
Gotcha.
But beyond that, no, the wording should reflect, we want this. You know, we're asking for this.
Absolutely.
Not in the future.
Yep. And the only other thing that we talked about at the meeting that I don't remember in here, is that what we wanted was to understand more of the global plan that DOT is working on for the bike paths. Because they did say, oh, we don't have a master plan, and then they also said, but we are working on several other streets in Lower Manhattan. So
Yes, and that actually is in the agenda, that's in the schedule of things to bring them back for. I don't think it needs to be part of this resolution.
Okay.
But that's already being looked at, because that's part of the congestion price. It's related to everything, but it's tied to congestion pricing as well as the general concern for the neighborhood. And one other thing that's added, just for the heads up, with anticipating judging the proposed project success, one thing added to that, the movement of buses and vehicles, the adequate delivery access. There was a question that came up with adding also and garbage pickup.
Oh, that
So
would be
that'll
great.
be added there because that was a concern, so.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be added in that particular last one,
Perfect.
since you brought it up.
Yeah, that was from Catherine.
That's perfect.
Okay, any other comments or additions or questions before a vote? Okay. Then those that vote in favor of the resolution.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Abstain.
1 recusal, abstaining?
Me?
Are you in favor?
No, yes, I'm voting for it.
Okay.
With the additions.
Okay, motion carries. And are there any abstentions or recusals?
Just
Like
one
yours?
abstain.
Okay,
Yeah.
1 abstention.
I don't, because they're not going to file the 5 miles an hour. They're not going to follow that, and people are going to get hurt.
No, but that's an
Then
enforcement
say oppose
issue.
it.
I know.
That's
Then flat out oppose it.
Yeah, maybe I will at the full board. Plus, European and tourists from Asia will necessarily assume that the bicycle is going to stop. In New York, they don't. There, they do.
Right. They're ashamed, they'll obey the law.
I mean, the one thing
You don't
I
have
will
that
say,
culture.
For the most part.
if you take a look at the bicycle safety, now that the right turn lanes are in on the West Side Highway, from a driver's perspective, it's significantly better. I don't feel like I'm dodging bicyclists and pedestrians trying to drive the car. As a bicyclist going through there, I feel so much safer. because I have a
And I
clear
see people
understanding.
following it.
Yeah. The turn lanes have been an amazing addition.
Betty.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you. Tammy really pushed that hard, so.
Betty, this is separate from this. I'm just curious. I was surprised that, so the e-bikes that are gonna be legal and everything like that, they can go 15, 20 miles an hour.
Well, they're not going
They're
to,
not-
yeah, it
no.
was
The governor
vetoed.
denied it for the
Okay,
year.
okay, so then.
It'll be a while.
So,
If-
any motorized vehicle is still under the regular bicycle, type of rules for the streets and everything?
According to the commissioner, New York State DOT regulations are bicycles or any structure like that that goes 20 miles an hour or less. So if
But they don't, they go faster.
The motor, yeah, I'm
they're
hoping in
not
the future, the
supposed to.
motorized,
But
like,
they do.
they separate motorized from non-motorized, because I just, it takes effort to go, it doesn't take any effort to just speed on the
Is that,
sidewalks.
is that
Right.
something
I
you
don't know
want to
how-
bring
I don't
up at a transportation
Yeah,
meeting in
yeah.
the
I was
future,
gonna say,
Mitch?
right, and
Well, we
that's
have,
something-
yeah.
Right, no, that's something for the position of which bicycles are allowed, and again, New York City has done at different times, which
Right.
is why power pedal assist is technically legal in New York City, but electric e-bikes, all throttle are not. There was a question of, was the governor going to sign the bill that was going to make
Well,
them,
all the
and no, he
delivery
didn't.
people have the throttles, I mean, like we see,
But
Yeah,
we're also,
Right.
we
They
also
don't
have a
force.
resolution on file
Okay.
We do, yeah.
supporting that we don't want
Exactly.
e-bikes and throttles in
And
New York City.
Okay.
And the phrase you use is human powered,
Yeah.
that's the
Correct,
phrase.
and the mayor is on that side,
It's
or
just my
has
own
been historically.
education. Okay, thank you, Betty.
My God, we're moving along.
What's next?
We might get out of here by
Culture
9.
Street, we can move the Red Street Bridge to.
Yeah.
Yes, well, actually, the one that's time sensitive
I'm gonna be home, people are gonna be
would be
walking
the
up and down
final
the
one,
street yelling.
the Transportation Mobility Review Board.
Because I live in Battery Park City.
Tammy,
Sorry.
Tammy, I know you were looking at this too, the last resolution, the Transportation Mobility Review Board.
Yeah.
Now, Lucian has brought up, and hopefully Diana's gonna provide, the real name for these different organizations. Because again, all these things keep changing what their official name is.
Oh,
This is the name that tends to be used in all news publications. But it will get updated
Mobility Review Board.
to who it
What
is.
a-
They are the ones who are gonna be,
TMRP.
right, they are gonna be the ones who write all the rules for the congestion pricing.
In secret.
It's
Yes.
ama- I just find the title of such, the Transportation Mobility Review, I mean, like,
I know.
it's so disingenuous from what's
Well,
really.
I mean, the disingenuous is that there's no transparency and there's no public engagement, which violates the principles of New York State, which has already been ruled on
The
from one
spirit of, I say
the
the spirit
spirit
of, because they've said that it's exempt.
But one of the MTA boards, who they had said was exempt, was sued and became public, so, hello.
Yeah.
Right, so all we can do is ask, and it's
Yep.
asking. It's also doing some other things, but this is for that group that is going to be setting up congestion pricing. They are not appointed. I spoke with people from Deborah Glick's office at the last meeting, and they haven't been able to find out anything. I spoke with people from Battery Park City Authority. They have their legal counsel on this. They have not gotten any information. These are state entities, and they can't get information. So I think we can assume they're not appointed yet.
You know what, Betty, one thing that I really like, the last, be it, wherefore, be it resolved, because if we follow, if the government follows this one, congestion pricing will never be implemented, because all the adequate transportation alternatives have to be available before congestion pricing plan, and that ain't they're not gonna have, before the congestion pricing plan is in effect, you said, like, logically, you should have the ample amount of subways and increased service and buses and everything, and that's not happening by 2020, 21, or 22.
Yeah, no, we know that, and that's why it's not particularly one of the resolves.
And so, like, that one should be highlighted in bright red.
Yeah,
because-
I agree.
Because, like I said, I had to, like,
I'm
very
actually
rarely,
rewriting it now.
I'm lucky, I have to take, very rarely do I have to take, and we talked offline of this, very rarely do I have to take trains during rush hour. I don't know, I had to wait, one time last week I had to do it because of just a schedule that day. I had to wait for 2 trains in Midtown to get on a sardine-packed train, and it was dangerous. The people that maybe weren't as mobile as me, it was dangerous, like people standing almost to the yellow of the platform,
Yeah.
and to have congestion pricing, and then not to have, I mean, they couldn't fit more people at, like, during rush hour. And then being at my parents' house in the Bronx and waiting 40 minutes because you can't, it's too far to walk to the train, and the buses are not running in the middle of the night. So I could walk down the hill for a half an hour to the train down on Broadway in the North Bronx, but other people can't. So I don't know how, if we could highlight that last one. I mean, maybe it's just being redundant, but that last one is so great, the way you have it written.
Well, are you saying the second to last whereas?
No, the very last one is that basically congestion pricing cannot be implemented until there's adequate transportation alternatives. I mean, if they want to take millions of people like out of cars and everything like that, there has to be a place for them to go.
Yeah, like who the hell wants to go on the subway in those conditions?
And there's no more room in rush hour.
Betty, I've got one ad.
Wait, sorry, I'm just straightening out the.
I've got two ads that I'd love to put in here. One is the whereas where basically the governor lost, whereas, the panel that he said did not need public process and then was.
You also spelled the governor's name wrong in the second one.
Yeah. It has to be spell checked.
That's better than spell check.
I'd like to put that, it has to comply with the state's open meeting laws, which they're claiming it doesn't.
Doesn't it say that?
It doesn't say specifically anywhere that I saw.
Well, the thing is they should, not must, because
No,
they're saying that it does not.
I would love it to say that it has to be. Like, why wouldn't, I mean.
Why not?
Request it.
I say you can request, because the state law very specifically gives dates, such as the committee, this review board, will not mention anything until after November 15th.
Yep, cowards.
So how can they have open meetings when they're not allowed to be in public
They
before
can change the
November 15th?
legislation if there's enough public, or lawsuit and/or
That's what
public
I said, I
pressure.
think you can ask.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd love to say that, similar to the MTA Sustainability Advisory Working Group, which was subject to open meeting law, we request that the state have the TMRB follow the same standard. And then in the second, therefore, allows input on all decisions prior to, do we need to say anything, like, we want input prior to them being finalized, right? They can, what we want for input is before the decisions are made, not input, hey, this is what we've done.
Right, yeah.
Aren't you happy we have this? No, we kind of want to back that the other way.
Does this come into opinions about exemptions, or is that a separate thing, Betty, in town?
That's something that the working group's going to do. Or task
Right, the
force.
working group's going to do, which, it's going to be the last thing I talk about tonight,
Okay.
anyway.
Okay.
But keep in mind, anything done, it's been decided it's going to be via resolutions versus one grand report at the end. It's going to be a series of resolutions, which is a much easier little light thing to do. Congestion Working Group will be working on it. Everything, every vote will be Transportation Committee. So for those people who are concerned about that. Also, I might as well get on to the others since I know it's in people's minds anyhow.
Do you want to
I have
call the
additions.
vote?
No, I have,
Yeah, no, it will.
I have some additions.
Okay.
So I want it to be a little stronger, that we're really pissed off about how the lawmakers, who are called cowards, decided that everything needs to be released to the public after the election day. So, on the second to last whereas, I would just say it's disingenuous and the antithesis of public input that the TRMB cannot release. And we really want that language to be strong. Anyone disagree with that?
I do.
Anyone
Which
else?
whereas are you talking about?
The second to last
On the
whereas.
first page?
How can you disagree with that? I mean,
the
I mean,
second.
I'd like to call them cowards for
Are you
doing
talking
that.
the first, this one?
Second
Yeah,
to
I-
last whereas. It's disingenuous in the antithesis of public input that the TMRB cannot release its recommendations until November 15th. Blah, 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 blah.
I don't see why they couldn't change it. I mean,
That's in the law.
Right, they would write new legislation.
That- yeah,
Do I think
yeah.
the legislation
It can't
passed
be.
only because it's in there? I
Yeah.
suspect yes.
Yeah, so,
it can't be changed by executive order.
I don't think so.
No, and I think he's the one who engineered that it be in this.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
So does
Well, no,
anyone,
it's election day.
can I take a straw poll on using that language, adding that? Anyone disagree or agree?
Yeah, I do. I'd like it softened down a little bit. I don't
I
want to be
mean,
offensive about it, so you
Who
know, strong
cares
ways
if
to
we're
go.
offensive? What difference does it
Well,
make?
because I think
mean,
it's counterproductive.
look what they're
That's why I
doing to
think-
us. What's counterproductive is the way they're shoving this down our throat,
So
whether you agree
there's,
with it
all
or
right, so
disagree
let's
with
find
it.
a middle ground. Let's
Yeah,
find strong
yeah,
language
yeah.
that's not offensive. Right?
That's my point, yes.
We can, what were your words, Mark?
Disingenuous and the antithesis of public input.
I think cowards was the.
No,
the
that's what I'd like to say.
Right, and we're trying to find
Yeah.
a strong way
But
of
this
saying
is what
that
I'm willing to put in. I'd like to call them, you know.
I
But I know I'm not gonna use that in the resolution.
represents an antithesis, represents, I don't mind antithesis of public input or anything along those lines because it is opposite to
You
that.
say it discourages, well, I don't know if it discourages.
There is no
definitely
public
discourages
input.
public
That's the
input,
thing.
but
There isn't
it
any.
doesn't Really, yeah.
There isn't any. So that's why it's the antithesis of it. Because there isn't any public input.
So you can say that it is in antithesis to the state's open meeting laws and and the process for public engagement.
All right, use that, that's fine.
Or just in
Okay.
conflict with. I mean, what's wrong with straightforward speech?
In
People tend to be able
conflict,
to read that and kind
In
of like
conflict
it.
with the open meeting.
yeah, in conflict with the open meeting, yeah.
So use
I mean,
that sentence and
I would love it to
we'll use what she said at
And I
this spot
think that we can be a little
to
bit
start it off.
persnickety in there to say that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, let's be honest, we are one of the community boards that's gonna have the biggest
Mm.
ouch on this.
Mhm.
There's only a couple of us who are really gonna get killed in this process. So.
Well, no, there's,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
there are at least five. I mean,
Yeah, half a
Can
dozen.
you imagine if you have to move your
I
car
would-
if you live on 61st Street?
You imagine how many cars are gonna try and get out of.
Oh my God.
So, I
There's
mean,
gonna be
why
a whole
don't,
nother business that's gonna come
The
up.
arbor-
so
like
why don't we?
parking, yeah.
Also the arbitrariness of 60.
We could say that CV1 is extremely displeased or, completely, finds this process unacceptable in terms of public engagement. I mean, we can go on record in saying something like that because, quite
say what we
frankly,
want.
we should, and it doesn't make a difference where you sit on the line for congestion pricing, it's about the engagement and the open transparency, as we've heard from
We
big
could,
topic tonight.
we could say, I say piffle.
Yeah. All right, I have one other.
Add a piffle to this, Betty.
And the be it further resolved,
And spell it
the
right.
first one, where it starts, where it ends regarding New York City congestion pricing plan. I'd like to add to that, or maybe it could be its own further be resolved. I know we say it, but I want to say it. I also want to say this a little clearer and ask for this because we just spoke about it. That all meetings be open to the public and call on lawmakers to amend the law rescinding the November 15th, 2020 requirement.
why don't you turn that around?
Right.
They
Say it out.
rescind it so that people could attend.
Yeah, all right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
agreed.
Saying
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Agreed.
It's
That sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had.
And Betty,
Well,
just, there is a precedent of history of us being really snarky
Yes.
in
sometimes.
resos.
Sometimes.
We
yes.
have, as a community board, gone on record with really strong language.
Mhm.
So I don't think that we should be afraid to use it, but it needs to be contextually appropriate, as we were saying before. And I think in this kind of a conversation where we sit about public engagement, it's not a bad place to be particularly strong-worded. Strongly objects, refuses to accept. Pick your language as you want to do it. But in that kind of a process, I personally, and again, this is only my personal opinion, don't mind the strong language on that without using words like cowardly
Yeah.
So I didn't, I
I
didn't
know.
want that in the resolution.
I hear you.
Disingenuous, only disingenuous.
Burt Barlight. Nobody, there's too old of a reference, only you got it, Betty?
You know, I don't know if you want to include
Char
that,
the bread,
but
don't
in
burn
it
it.
being a public process, I mean, there was no public input before it was even voted on. So they included it in the budget. But
Right.
whether you're for it or against it, I mean,
And
they
we
should have
are-
had public hearings.
And we already said that we weren't in favor of it doing that way, and they ignored us anyway.
So,
Well, exactly, which is why I still prefer, I think it is more productive to be, you can have strong, we strongly urge, we insist, you know, but
Maybe it
not be
depends.
over the top where people feel just justified to be behind closed doors.
Right.
they don't care.
Well,
Believe
exactly,
me,
some of
they-
that's gonna
believe
happen
me.
anyway,
Believe
that
me.
happens everywhere,
They don't
all
care.
the time, for things that are very politically sensitive around elections. That's
Like
not
I
a
said,
surprise.
I just can't see how
So are you
this is,
taking a
they're
vote?
gonna start charging people
Yes,
January
people-
1st. Betty, I
Maybe.
just don't see how, because it says in this thing like, that they can start charging after December 31st, 2020.
Wait for the lawsuit.
So I don't.
That's law,
Right,
that
so
doesn't mean they're gonna do it
I just
the
don't see
next
how
day.
they
Let's
can
take a
charge
vote
people
before
January
Michael
1st,
leaves.
Oh, I'm not leaving, I'm just standing
because
outside.
they're not gonna have
We have one more
trains and
resolution.
buses available.
Right, and that's the challenge of the other group, and we'll get on to that. I have an whole outline, correct?
Yes.
Where we're going over there is
Zero
your
outline.
You're gonna lose
I know
more.
there are
Diane
lots of
says
people.
yes, then.
We have one more
Right,
resolution.
no, we're gonna vote.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, it's unanimous, assuming you're in
Yeah,
favor.
okay.
See, that was nice. This,
So you don't have to do any other counts
Great.
on that.
I love that.
It's accounted for everyone.
One more of us. Oh.
There
yeah.
is one more, but let me tell you the drawback to the other one.
The other one?
Yes, Hollister Street. I was told to not let anything be driven by a single individual. So I would really benefit from having emails sent in, people present, come in person, things coming forward stating their concerns about that, because I was told not to let anything be driven by a single person.
What does
That is
that mean?
what
I don't know what that
they-
means. What are you talking about?
I want a resolution done, and so trust me, this is what we're going to do.
I didn't say that. I've spoken about this.
Let's,
I've spoken
Are
about
we-
this
That's what
in the
civil
committee before. I've brought it up in the committee.
Right. I think
Yeah.
we have multiple people who have that feeling, people who live on the block, other
Right.
people affected by it. So I said, since they're not here, I don't mind extending, and if they want to email in, if they want to call in support,
No.
but to draft something from just one person's word from it, and I have drafted a good deal from the logistics of just going there.
What are you talking
What are
about?
we talking about?
Hollister?
what's happening?
Hollister.
Okay, I'm totally not
Yeah.
familiar with this.
Yeah, I'm not.
I have
All
no
right,
idea what you're
Right.
talking
let's,
about.
And
here's
that's
the
my
thing.
concern with doing it this month versus next.
So let's put it on, if we have slides, let's review the information this month. We'll go for resolution next month, because no offense, but
Yeah.
it's,
Where is Collinston Street?
It's, I actually
One
used
of
to
you-
live there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right. Can I speak on this?
Yes.
All right. I don't know who ever told
Do
you
you want
that,
to see where it
but
is, first of all?
that's
Well, yes,
kind
I
of
think Tommy was
that's
just-
kind of
I don't want to disrespect Tommy.
let's
irrelevant.
not take it as a personal
No,
thing,
it's
let's just
not.
discuss the topic.
It's
and
not
we'll take that
personal,
offline.
but the fact that the resolution, it's on an agenda for a resolution, and it's actually non-controversial. It's a very simple thing.
Okay.
I've spoken about. You might not have been here. I
Okay.
brought it up at other
Sure.
meetings, regards to this. There've been, I don't know how many resolutions we passed where there's no one here in favor or against it. How many times has that happened?
What it is, Mark?
Just that
We're gonna see some pictures soon, but Anthony has asked me not to put forward any resolutions with a one-person testifying.
But that's not the
I'm
case.
just asking you what it is,
Yeah, we
Betty.
just
I
wanna
have
know
no
what it
idea
is.
what we're
Okay,
voting
Yes,
on.
I'm
let's
gonna
not-
see it in a minute.
I
And
can
that-
vouch for
working on it.
Mark's.
That's out of the box of conversation, and that's for a future
Right,
forward
for a
look for.
postponement, yes.
So what, I guess
But
what you're referring to is that Mark brought it to your attention and you're saying that Mark is the only person who's.
So far
is-
that I've
is
heard from.
Pushing this.
But
So
that's-
But should
I
I
would
go
vouch
look
for
at it?
Mark. I used to live right there as well. I think there should be letting a comment.
And that's, I
Okay.
think, the problem
Where's
is,
Collinston Street?
You're gonna see it on the map real soon.
before we say that it's one person's drive, we should open to see if it actually affects more people.
Right, and that's why I said, otherwise we need to postpone, and people can email
can vote
in, they can do what they
again.
like.
A little out.
That's not the way it works. What is this new change in policy?
No,
It's
I'm not
not
saying
new
you.
change, I disagree with that.
This has never, this subject has never come up before, about that it's read by one person, which is not, by the way, it's actually not true.
Right.
So, All right, the long and the short of it is that the reason why I requested this to be on the agenda, and I spoke about it in past meetings, so it's not like it's a foreign thing, is that Collister Street between Lake and Beach, and used to live there, Elizabeth, has become an issue at night, also during the day. There's also another issue with the Citibank construction workers still going to smoke marijuana over there. But you'll see about that. But because it's not well lit in certain areas there, particularly between Hubert and Beach, it's been there. You can do it on the picture. Yeah, it's become an area of drug use, fighting from the bar, things like that.
Okay.
So since the neighborhood has changed a little bit.
But Mark,
Yeah.
you have like these townhouse residents that belong to 7 Hubert
Mhm.
on that stretch
Mhm.
of Collister, and I wonder what they would think about, you see what I'm talking about there?
So here, so
So they're like those town, okay,
So
All
let
the
me,
residents on the left side
do you
of the
have
street.
the thing, the arrow to go up and
so
down?
those are all like townhouses.
So this is just the one block.
So do
Yeah.
you have the arrow to
Directions.
go up and down to show?
No, you see just on the
Yeah.
left slide.
Well, it's hard to say. So
The slide on the left.
so
that's
so this
between-
light pole here, right? It has a light pole that goes like that, and one that goes like that.
Right.
Right, and there's
Down
none of
here,
that.
down here, and at Lake Street, there's only one light. That's it. So a little bit of additional lighting is needed to come into the street.
Okay.
That's it.
How many lights?
Just
You're
like
gonna Collister, Hubert to Lake.
yeah, like you see how this
have
is
the
one,
And you have
another
one
light
other
coming out
That's
this
what I'm
way
saying,
would be good, and also at
Mark,
Lake.
do you know if the condo owners are in support of this?
Are you talking about
Yeah, with the
between
light
Beach and
going to
Hubert,
their-
or
Right there, right there, right
He's
there.
talking
That would
about,
bother me.
Mark, you're
Both.
talking about right there, right?
if you look at this, you'll
So
see
here's
those
the
small
thing.
lights
You have a
that are
lot of-
there.
Okay, can I just show you something? So right here.
Particularly,
not this photo.
See the lights they put up
I
right by their door.
Betty,
So this is
I
an
apologize, but
apartment
I gotta
building.
go.
This is an apartment building. But
Right.
show me the next
I
slide.
got a babysitter, I got a.
So this
I
is
gotta go.
No, but next slide. Where's the next
I
slide?
don't know how this works.
Do you
Can I bring up
quorum?
one point quickly before Tammy leaves?
Do you quorum?
Okay.
Yes, the way it's gonna happen with the working group,
So
Yeah.
this
because the
whole
people who are
stretch down
interested
here,
are really
it's
the
all
same number who
single-family
could be in it,
townhouses.
and
No,
really
just down
anyone
there.
who wants to be in
Not
it is
here.
going to be
That's
invited,
here.
and there'll be an email going
Right
out about
here.
that.
You just
It
have to
will
make
be
sure
the
you
7 to
go
8
through
o'clock.
people, because I don't know if
time.
lighting.
From
I
here.
want to go one picture back.
This
Other
is
than-
this is so
Just so
dark
you know.
here
Productive.
at
Okay,
night.
Thank
so
Mark,
I
Can't
think
see
you have to
anything.
talk to them, because what if lighting
Thank you. It's
disrupts
been a
the
long
quality
night.
of
I have a
life?
suggestion.
Whatever.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you.
If you want, I'm riding my.
Okay,
I'm good.
there was one more, there was one, okay.
Of course, thanks for.
I figure if I offer them a ride, they won't lynch me in a cab.
Instead of a pole there, because you take away that, you know how like, it's kind of, this is an analogy, but you know, they sell in like some of like these stores, like, where you, like, if you have like a closet, then you kind of stick on, the like a stick-on light that could go in the closet, you know?
I should have taken pictures
What
at
about,
night.
what about some type of like a light that's
But
not
just-
from a
it's
lamppost,
low, but
but
on the street,
like
yeah.
a light, a light, like, almost
Yeah.
like a light with a
Are,
reflector?
are
Yeah,
those
like
not
right here.
lights?
There's
Is that,
some lights
No,
here.
isn't that,
Oh, those are
lights? What are
Those
those?
are lights.
They look just
Those
like
are
lights. They
Maybe
look
they're not
like
working.
light bulbs.
Yeah, but there's
The
very
thing
few
is,
of them.
it's
Why are they
here,
Right, I'm sure it's very dark.
It's here,
Yeah.
here.
And if you look at the
between here,
road,
it's
there's
extremely
no way
dark.
that would be lit up.
And-
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
putting lights
I mean,
on
it's
one
essentially
light?
they're
one light
winter.
like
I
that?
don't know, that's a building
It's
owner
not gonna
thing.
be part of the
And
resolution,
here.
the street.
No, I agree with you about getting light, I'm just trying to mitigate like.
I just
So
feel
then
like
where-
we need
so
to
then
talk
where
to
are we
residents,
supposed to
because
put the
light
light
could be
You went
Well,
tall.
You
it's
would-
the street, but the actual
I
cobblestone
would just
mess.
do a lot
yeah,
less
no.
instead.
Yeah,
Would be
yeah.
only part, because that's gonna be a
I
separate
feel like you.
cobblestone mess
So you
general.
need the
So
additional
be
light
on
to
the
come out
cobblestone,
here,
be on the
and
sidewalk.
that would shine
Yeah,
on that
you
No, we
building.
want it everywhere, but we're not gonna address the actual
You know,
problem.
what's-
Mark, with the light
It's
shines
What's
down.
disturbing is the people
Okay,
smoking
So
drugs
maybe
and
they'll
fighting and
repair it
stuff like
because
that,
they're
so,
gonna bigger
so,
cobblestone
What I'm saying is
initiative.
maybe they'll have
yeah, I
that.
spoke to the
You don't
neighbor there,
wanna, like,
this one.
Can we reach out to the
shock them
neighbors
with
in
this,
that building
glaring
direct,
light.
like,
It's
can we?
not
what I
glaring.
want.
About what
I'm
they
saying
want.
I want.
There's already a
I
light
would-
there, that's the thing.
Elizabeth,
I wouldn't
you
want
get
the
something
light
like
to be
this, and
towards the
you have
second
the
floor,
lights kinda
because then it
like
would
facing
also
down,
like be
so
really
it's like
bright.
this, so
But
it's
there
not
might be
like-
housing on the
Lower
first
light
floor.
was what they're talking about.
You know, I just wanna
Right.
check to see if the
Yeah.
residents
That's
there
why
are just not,
the
are not
question
gonna
is, we
like
want
be
to
upset
hear
about it,
people
you know?
directly affected
I think it's
by
worth
it,
checking.
because sometimes
Oh,
that's
no,
exactly what they say.
definitely. But
And
I
so
can
you
see
don't
how I'd
wanna
like
do
to
what,
make things
in their
safer.
absence, we find out they
Not
hate
glaring, but not
what
glaring.
you're fixing.
you know, almost
Yeah.
like.
So
like,
you can make-
you know,
that's
like
the
a
whole
country
point
road and
of
have
not
those, like,
getting more.
reflectors
There's
that
like a
kinda makes
compromise, like, they'll turn off at 11 or
visible,
something.
Yeah, I know, I agree.
You know what I mean?
I think there are all kinds of regulations
What
that
about cameras?
Yeah, what about
kind of learn
camera?
over
Well,
time.
with a light, with a little light, what about cameras?
What, the ones that blink on and off?
Like security cameras.
Oh, I don't
It's usually asking.
All it
them
needs,
to do that.
it just needs to be, it needs to be
Oh, yeah,
well,
say,
better
let's do
lit
this,
because of the
let's do
activity
that.
that's
I know, I
going
agree
on
with
there.
you, I'm just saying.
Not even that, it's also
still
not
doing
safe
this?
to walk down there at night
Yeah.
as
Are
well.
we leaving? Are we
Everybody-
having a meeting? It's a great neighborhood.
Okay.
Did you
We
do,
talked about
the
it
old
later.
ladies in my old
Okay.
neighborhood in the Bronx used to, they throw a pitcher of boiling water out the second floor window when we were playing
So
too late at night.
let's put together the rest of the resolution. I have a lot of it drafted that you can start responding to give me details. Very much appreciated. If there are people who live there, who can give their feedback, because again, as Mimi said, well, maybe they don't want light on the second floor. We want to hear from the people most affected because they may not like some solutions. They may say, this is what I want, but not that.
Right.
I want to hear those voices before we make a definitive
Absolutely.
vote. So that's what, for next month, the plan should be to vote. People know something, look at it, ask, and let's hear from the people most affected by it. Because it's pretty obvious that lighting is needed.
Yeah. You should see what it's like at night. It's just dangerous.
Oh,
Well, tell them, send letters then, have Lucian
don't
send
go
letters
there.
to the addresses.
Betty hangs out there
I
all,
will talk to
at 1 in the morning.
It was terrible.
Can
But
you
also-
send letters to those Cole Street?
Can I?
Yeah, or can the board,
You can
the
have
office?
Solution
The
too.
o- can you,
Lucian's doing transportation after this meeting.
Right, that's the other announcement. Lucian
I
will
read-
be.
so make a note to send letters to the,
I will ask
to
you
the, it's like 3 Colsters, 7 Colster, 9 Colster.
Right, I also want you to realize that this resolution so far, and I was advising it, will not talk about repairing the cobblestone.
No,
Wait,
I was just
it's nothing to do with that.
No, right, no, it's going to talk about the need for illumination, because obviously someone could really damage themselves walking on that.
Yeah, look at that
But
one there.
it is written on the schedule for, and I think it's actually February, we're going to start to ask for an overview of the plan for cobblestone from DOT. We want the big picture.
Also-
What's their plan for all of the roads.
That's a cobblestone sidewalk.
There's a lot
Yes,
of
I know.
cobblestones and they're all
Trust
very
me.
slippery.
But you know,
I
you gotta
noticed
drive,
mine
like I
right
said, the few times during the year that I have to borrow a car and drive, I can't believe, I actually had to go 2 or 3 miles an hour
And
along
we're done.
Greenwich Street.
You know, that's another consideration
Without-
too, because that's a little,
damaging the car.
that's a shortcut to kind of get around Hudson Street. And at night, they just fly down that
And that's
street.
bad for bicycles and on the Wynwood High
Yeah.
Hill.